Chapter 211. Cough cough. The following battle. Zhang Zhongbin said, Teacher Han, I'm not qualified to say anything with my cultivation level. I'm also not one of the participants. As he spoke, he let out a long sigh. His own mistake. If he had remembered the old principal's words and looked at his chi first, perhaps these sacrifices could have been avoided. Thinking of this, Zhang Zhongbin's heart felt like it was being cut by a knife. On the other side, before Han Song could speak, he sighed mournfully and said, This battle could be said to be the most dangerous battle I've ever experienced in my life. Shang Qingyun's strength was already at the high level of the cloud transformation realm, far above us. Furthermore, he could communicate with the heavens and earth, restore starlight, and even borrow the power of the constellations. Speaking of this battle, Director Zhang's strategy was perfect. He caused Shang Qingyun to be poisoned at the beginning of the battle, allowing us to gain the upper hand in the beginning. Unfortunately, the opponent's cultivation level was too high. Furthermore, among the reinforcements of the Kunlun Dao sect there was actually a Umno Alliance spy, who changed sides at the last minute, causing Brother Yang Yu to be fatally injured, causing us to be completely powerless in this battle. While Yang Yu killed the spy, he was willing to give up his life and used a self-explosion technique to attack Shang Qingyun. Finally, he died. Hearing this, Zhang Wenzhou's expression changed greatly, and his eyes became watery. As Han Song recounted the battle in detail, everyone felt that the fact that these people were still alive was simply a great stroke of luck. At the end of his narration, Han Song said, At the end of this battle, Shang Qingyun's injuries were mostly healed and he had the absolute upper hand. We were already doomed. But I don't know which hidden expert attacked and killed Shang Qingyun with a hammer. Otherwise, we would have died without a doubt. The complete annihilation was already a foregone conclusion at that time. However, after Shang Qingyun's death, a tribulation eye appeared in the sky, causing a commotion that shook the entire Phoenix City, causing the incident to escalate further. I can't make any judgments about the situation after that, and can only attribute it to something strange. Han Song recounted the incident and said, After that, all of us fainted. Truly, the power of the heavenly lightning was too great, and our injuries were too severe. After listening to the entire process, everyone's face sank and they were speechless for a long time. Moments later, He Yuanyue was the first to speak up. She glared at Zhang Zhongbin and said, I told you to look for it, and you didn't look? Zhang Zhongbin wished he could stuff his head into the crotch of his pants. He was ashamed to the extreme. I've calculated everything once and considered every detail. Only this. I forgot. You. He Yuanyue almost couldn't catch her breath. I forgot. You've forgotten the most important thing right now. What was the use of remembering other things no matter how meticulous they were? As long as they looked for Zhuo Duo, they might be able to avoid the tragic situation of this battle or wait for a more perfect opportunity. The current situation was definitely not something that anyone present wanted to see. If not for that mysterious expert of unknown origin, then Qin Fengyang, Mu Yinyan, Han Song and the others would have been completely annihilated in this battle, without a single survivor. If these people were all dead, then the entire Phoenix City would become an empty city. At that time the Phoenix Pulse spirit, thinking of this, He Yuanyue felt a chill down her spine. She couldn't help but point at Zhang Zhongbin and scold him. Bastard! Can't you do something about it? You've been like this since young. The more important things are, the more you forget. Now that your head is bald, you still haven't changed your old habits. Zhang Zhongbin knew that he was in the wrong. He obediently admitted his mistake and didn't dare to talk back. Zhang Wenzhou watched in amazement. What the hell, such a wretched and lazy person who could even curse his own father was actually so obedient in front of this weak old lady. But you can scold him all you want. But can you not mention the bald thing? The follow-up of this matter needs to be handled properly. Zhang Wenzhou coughed a few times and made the final decision. Governor Wan, there's a high chance that Shang Qingyun is not the only spy in your governor's office. I hope you can assist in the investigation. Zhang Wenzhou said. Of course. Wan Pingyuan let out a long sigh. His expression was bleak as he said, I have committed a serious dereliction of duty in this matter. I will personally submit a letter to ask for forgiveness. As for the follow-up investigation, I will naturally cooperate with all my strength. I have no complaints. Since Zhang Wenzhou had come here, he naturally had full authority to take over this matter. He arranged everything in detail and then began to think. That hammer that suddenly appeared, who did it belong to? Smashing Shangqing into death with one hammer. And then the tribulation eye appeared? What does it mean? The lightning that directly struck a Yun realm expert until he fainted. Why did it cause such a big commotion? After thinking about it for a long time, he still couldn't figure it out. On the other side, Zhuo Xiaonian had already returned home. After a busy night, she was also unbearably tired, especially when Wu Taijiang solemnly warned her, "Don't ever reveal your existence." Zhuo Xiaonian knew the severity of the matter and naturally agreed. As for the spatial ring that she had picked up, she immediately handed it over to Mu Yanyan, who had regained her consciousness. Mu Yanyan also immediately handed it over. I was worried about Master, so I rushed over to take a look after there was no sound. This reason perfectly explained why she had appeared over there. After all, Zhuo Xiaonian's background was clean and there was nothing to investigate. But since dawn, Phoenix City had directly entered a state of lockdown. Zhang Wenzhou transferred a lot of experts from the headquarters to investigate this matter. Even the Meng family and the Ning family were included in the scope of investigation. 2 people from the governor's mansion were missing, and the entire city was searching for them. It was worth mentioning that regarding the Tribulation Eye, Zhang Wenzhou directly called the leader of the Star Shield Department and received a strict order to keep it a secret. Stop investigating the Tribulation Eye. This matter is to rot in your stomach. No one is to mention it again. Especially not to spread it out. Zhang Wenzhou was so depressed that he wanted to hang himself. Wasn't it too unlucky for me to take over this matter? That Tribulation Eye, at least a few million people had seen it. It was shining brightly in the sky like the sun. How am I supposed to keep it a secret? Keep a few million free people quiet? Why don't you try to keep it a secret? But how could he say this to his superiors? In the morning, Zhuo Xiaoduo went to school as usual. Zhuo Xiaonian went out with him. She was going to visit her master at the Star Shield Department. They went out side by side. When they were about to part at the corner, Zhuo Xiaonian suddenly stopped in a hidden corner. Damn! There's something I've been wondering about for a long time. Zhuo Xiaonian's face was very serious. What is it? Why are you so serious? Zhuo Xiaoduo looked puzzled. Do you think our parents are the kind of hidden experts? Zhuo Xiaonian frowned and said, Actually, I've had this feeling for a long time. I had this feeling long before Uncle Nan came. But I couldn't see anything unusual. But that Uncle Nan is clearly a big shot. I once asked Master about it in a roundabout way. He gave me in your cultivation base and there were no side effects at all. Master has never even heard of such a method, let alone done it. Zhuo Xiaoduo listened quietly and nodded. And this time Uncle Wu, who made weapons for us, opened a blacksmith shop next to our shop. Let's not talk about this first. But the person who killed Shang Qingyun with a hammer was most likely Uncle Wu. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so coincidental. I had just informed Uncle Wu, and Shang Qingyun was smashed to death with a hammer right after. Zhuo Xiaonian said, to kill Huayun so easily, Uncle Wu's cultivation is beyond my understanding. It's indescribable, indescribable. What do you think? Which one of these things is normal? Zhuo Xiaoduo frowned and walked forward silently. He didn't say a word for a long time. But Zhuo Xiaonian had obviously been waiting for this question for a long time. She talked about it almost endlessly. Think about it. As the saying goes, dragons don't live with snakes, phoenixes don't dance with sparrows. If Dad and Mom are really ordinary people, how could people like Uncle Nan and Uncle Wu? Zhuo Xiaonian said. And they obviously respect Dad and Mom very much. No, it's not respect, it's fear. Isn't this even more abnormal? Zhuo Xiaoduo rolled his eyes and said, I don't think there's anything abnormal. You think too much. Zhuo Xiaonian was speechless. She stared at Zhuo Xiaoduo for a long time and said angrily, You're so cunning. You must know something that I don't. Zhuo Xiaoduo spread his hands and said, What can I find? I only know that Dad and Mom don't have any cultivation at all. It's tiring for them to run a little distance. Zhuo Xiaonian suddenly rushed up and grabbed Zhuo Xiaoduo's ears with both hands. She said fiercely, You're exposed. Zhuo Xiaoduo. Humph, if there's nothing wrong, you won't say what can I find. Since he couldn't find anything, he must be suspicious. Zhou Xiaonian began to exert force. You're a dog. Are you going to confess or not? Spare me. Zhou Xiaoduo instinctively lowered his head and begged for mercy when his ears were grabbed. But he didn't expect that he would bump into the murderous weapon. Suddenly, a strange feeling arose and then he was bounced back. For a moment he only felt a cool breath penetrating his body. It was indescribably comfortable. Zhou Xiaonian screamed. She let go of her hands and stepped back. Her face was flushed. You're dead. Then she started to chase after him. Zhou Xiaoduo covered his head and fled. He explained repeatedly, I didn't do it on purpose. Besides, I didn't bump into her. I didn't. She's so beautiful. Zhou Xiaonian became more and more angry. The strange feeling in her chest seemed to remain. She was embarrassed and angry at the same time. She attacked even more ruthlessly. Therefore, Zhou Xiaoduo jumped into the air and started to bungee jump. In a moment he jumped 7 or 8 times in a row. Chapter 212. When he caught her again, Zhou Xiaonian blushed and asked, Do you dare to do it again? I won't. Zhou Xiaoduo shook his head repeatedly. But he still felt a touch of gentleness on his face. He couldn't help but lick his upper lip and lower lip. You. Zhou Xiaonian was about to explode again. Let's get down to business. Zhou Xiaoduo begged for mercy. Humph. I have similar suspicions about my parents' background. But my suspicions are different from yours, Zhou Xiaoduo said seriously. I've personally verified that my parents don't have any cultivation. Right now they are just 2 ordinary people. However, there are too many other abnormalities. Zhou Xiaoduo said, I've investigated. 1,000 fantasy gold, heavenly witch copper, imperishable gold, and so on. Zhou Xiaonian said impatiently, Hurry up and tell me. Are you sure you want to tell me here? Zhou Xiaoduo glanced around. Alright, come with me. In a secret place. The 1,000 fantasy gold is a special metal that can only be formed when the star spirit and the metal intertwine for a long time in the void and fuse together. It can be forged into a weapon that is indestructible and unbreakable. It can also change its color according to the owner's needs. It has the characteristic of being ever-changing. Therefore, it is called the 1,000 fantasy gold. Heavenly witch copper is one of the few high-grade forging materials in the Umno Alliance. It's even rarer in the astral souls. Imperishable gold is obtained by refining a large amount of 1,000 fantasy gold's essence. Moreover, it doesn't mean that you have to refine imperishable gold just because you've obtained a large amount of 1,000 fantasy gold. It also requires exquisite refining skills. In the entire astral souls, there are no more than 10 people who can extract imperishable gold from 1,000 fantasy gold. Zhou Xiaoduo said. And this is only one of them. Zhou Xiaonian nodded slowly. Zhou Xiaoduo said, On the other hand, I agree with you. I even think that Uncle Nan and Uncle Wu are not only respectful to our parents, but also respectful with a hint of fear. Also, I suspect that Uncle Nan's true intention in coming to Phoenix City is actually to deliver cultivation methods and materials to us. Think about it, would such a person carry 2 peerless secret manuals with him when he goes out? Furthermore, it was a one-time transfer? This goal is too obvious and too obvious. Secondly, who would bring 8 tons of illusion gold and heavenly sorcerer copper with them? Zhou Xiaoduo said. These great opportunities were arranged by our parents in advance and were specially brought here. Otherwise, how could there be such a coincidence? Of course, part of it was the extra extortion from his parents, so it had to be accounted for separately. However, since Uncle Nan had brought so many with him, it meant that he was prepared to be extorted. Otherwise, it wouldn't be necessary. Zhou Xiaonian nodded silently. Think so too. Doggy, you're really smart. There's also Uncle Wu. He had never appeared before, but he suddenly appeared when we needed to forge weapons. Our requirements for forging weapons are not low at all, and Uncle Wu had all the materials we needed. He didn't hesitate at all. I'm almost certain that Uncle Wu was specially called over by our father to forge weapons for us. Zhou Xiaoduo said, You see, his blacksmith shop, other than forging weapons for us, there's no other business. With his blacksmithing skills, the people who want him to forge weapons first should be fighting to the death and trampling over his doorstep. Zhou Xiaonian nodded vigorously. Yes. Similarly, those forging materials he prepared. At least most of them should have been prepared in advance. Zuo snorted. It's just a few adults acting in front of us, playing us like children. Zuo rolled her eyes. Doggy, what are you thinking? Aren't we children in their eyes? We should be honored that they are willing to play with us. Zuo said, in summary, the opportunities we had these days were actually man-made, but they were all for us. They didn't take a break at all. From this we can infer another conclusion. Our parents should be big bosses without a doubt. Zuo said with a heavy expression. However, Sister Nian, there's another thing that I have to remind you seriously. Zuo's sudden seriousness startled Zuo. Go ahead, I'm listening. What happened last night? It was so urgent. Logically speaking, the first thing a super boss should do was to send a telepathic message or something like that. But Dad asked you to go there. Then when Dad saw the tribulation he was so shocked and anxious that he went to find Uncle Wu himself. But I really ran all the way there with him. I even supported Dad for the last part of the journey. In other words, Dad's cultivation shouldn't be at the level of a martial master. He's almost the same as an ordinary person. There's no doubt about that, Zuo said, but Uncle Nan and Uncle Wu are such awesome people. They respect Dad so much, but Dad is at most a martial master. That's obviously abnormal. Zuo pondered. Zuo said, and, do you remember the space ring that Uncle Nan sent last time? Mom said she couldn't open it and asked Dad to check it. But you and I both know that martial masters don't have congenital divine thoughts. If Dad is only at the level of a martial master, how could he check the space ring? Zuo suddenly remembered, yes, that's true, but I didn't care at that time. Dad and Mom have lived here for a long time. That's true. But we've never heard about Grandpa and Grandma. That's also true. Dad and Mom couldn't have fallen from the sky. They don't have any background. That's not normal. But for so many years they never had any relatives. That's also strange. Are they both orphans? Dad and Mom asked Uncle Nan and Uncle Wu to come. That's why they could come. Zuo said seriously. Combining all the above, I have a conclusion. What's the conclusion? Zuo voice was so nervous that it changed. Dad and Mom are big shots, but now they can only be said to be big shots in the past. Something must have happened to them, and they were forced to live in seclusion in Phoenix City to slowly recover. So no matter if they asked for help or if other people knew that they were here, they would be in danger. Either they had an accident and their cultivation was sealed, or they were seriously injured and could only show their current shallow cultivation. But no matter what, it's not a good thing. It's a hidden danger. Zuo said seriously, this time Dad and Mom asked Uncle Nan and Uncle Wu to come for us. This should be a very dangerous thing for them, but they still did it. Why do you think it's for us? Zuo face was a little pale. Now that you mention it, I should feel touched. But why do I suddenly feel so scared? If news about Dad and Mom is leaked, won't they be in danger? Don't forget, when you needed pills for your breakthrough, Dad would rather go bankrupt than ask for help. Zuo breathed a sigh of relief. Sister Nian, Dad and Mom have done enough for us. In the future, it's our turn to protect them. Even if we don't have the ability, we have to at least let Dad and Mom maintain their current stable and happy life until they recover. And not lead trouble to them and let them have no choice but to expose themselves. If that's really the case, it'll be a disaster. Zuo nodded repeatedly. Dog, you're right. Don't say it again in the future. Don't let it slip. Yes, we have to be careful. We have to keep this matter to ourselves and not mention it to anyone. In particular, don't let Dad and Mom ask for help in the future. The hidden danger is too big. If one more person knows that Dad and Mom are here, it'll be more dangerous. Uncle Wu's strength is completely beyond my understanding. It's too scary. Yes. Sister Nian, didn't Dad and Mom always say that my birth was an accident? We always thought that they were pranking me. Or that they were flaunting their love and showing off their affection. But now it seems that this saying is actually true. Zuo said then. Here comes another question. Under what circumstances did I become an accident? Maybe it's because Dad and Mom were seriously injured and didn't want children. After all, having children is more damaging to their vitality. But I was accidentally pregnant and was born. So my birth was really an accident. At least, it was beyond Dad and Mom's expectations. Mom can't check the space ring, but Dad can. Maybe it was because of my birth? It seems that giving birth to me was really an accident. Zhuoxiaoduo felt a little guilty inside, sigh. Zhuoxiaonian nodded silently and said, "That's really possible. But now that you're born and so big, it's impossible to go back." Go back? Zhuoxiaoduo looked at Zhuoxiaonian in shock and suddenly felt convinced. Sister Nian Nian, what you said is really powerful. Otherwise, you would be my sister, Zhuoxiaonian said casually. After she finished speaking, she realized that something was wrong. However, Zhuoxiaoduo pointed it out and she couldn't help but fly into a rage out of humiliation. Shut up. After some discussion, the siblings quickly reached a consensus. First, Dad and Mom are big bosses. Second, Dad and Mom are seriously injured. Third, Dad and Mom are big bosses but they are very weak now. Fourth, Dad and Mom are big bosses but they are in danger now. Fifth, Dad and Mom are big bosses because they called people over, at least 2 people know that. Sixth, Dad and Mom are big bosses but they are probably seriously injured. Seventh, they have to protect Dad and Mom in the future. They have to find a way to find out the truth and then find a way to recover. Eighth, they have to let Dad and Mom recover. As long as Dad and Mom recover, won't we be able to do whatever we want in the future? Zhuoxiao's imagination ran wild. When that time comes, won't I be able to bully men and women, and be a second-generation rich kid who can do whatever he wants and win without doing anything? Just thinking about it makes me happy. Chapter 213. However, the current situation was that the more people who knew about this, the more danger his parents would be in. Based on the above conclusions, the further conclusion was that he could not call anyone else over no matter what. Then, he could not cause any more trouble for his parents. We're done talking. Why aren't you going to school? Zhuoxiaonian, who had solved the puzzle in her heart, kicked Zhuoxiaoduo's butt and said fiercely, "Don't play truant." Zhuoxiaoduo covered his butt and walked away. He was speechless. How much more are you going to bully me? Humph, when I grow up and my cultivation surpasses yours, I'll play with cats every day. He rubbed her once, then rubbed her again, then rubbed her again, then rubbed her again, then rubbed her again, then rubbed her again while lying down. Humph. As he thought about it, perhaps the flaming sun sutra in his body was automatically activated, causing some reactions. This sutra is really powerful. Zhuoxiaoduo went to school valiantly and energetically. At this moment, a large number of cars were gathered at the entrance of No. 2 High School. Everyone was craning their necks and waiting, looking into the distance. Zhuoxiaoduo was puzzled. What's going on? When the crowd saw Zhuoxiaoduo appear, someone shouted, "That's Master Zhuo." Instantly, over 100 people rushed over with a loud roar. Master Zhuo? Are they all here for me to read their fortune? Zhuoxiaoduo's brain worked very quickly. From the words Master Zhuo, it wasn't difficult to deduce that the people in front of him weren't here to cause trouble for him, but to have their fortune told by him. And the hundreds of people in front of him, as well as the luxury cars parked around them, were definitely rich people. At this thought, this money grubber's eyes turned into light bulbs. This is all money. This is all luck points. This. I'm going to be rich. As expected, gold will always shine, and pearls will always shine in front of people. I'm going to be rich. Don't worry. Zhuoxiaoduo raised his arms and shouted, "One by one. Everyone will have a share, everyone will have a share. Don't worry, I won't run away." At first glance he saw Li Chenglong carrying a large piece of iron on his back, running over like a snail. Li Chenglong. Zhuo. What's going on? Li Chenglong was carrying 3,000 jin of iron on his back, and he was also carrying weights. At this moment his whole body was covered in sweat. Apparently, he had realized the gap between him and Zhuoxiaoduo. This had driven Swollen completely crazy. He was cultivating as if his life depended on it. No matter what, he would not fall behind. And this big iron block was the product of Li Chenglong's sudden inspiration. I carry 200 kilograms of weight on my body every day, and it's all on my joints or key parts. It doesn't affect my overall body at all. If he were to carry another 3,000 pounds, that was how this happened. And it wasn't just him. Go bring me a table. Zhuoxiaoduo laughed heartily. I Master Zhuo want to perform the Tao on the spot. Shda. Li Chenglong was speechless. Okay, you perform the Tao. I'll go to the gravity room to cultivate. I'll catch up with you while I'm here. Not long after, Li Chenglong brought out a table and a chair. While Li Chenglong was moving the chair, Wan Lixiu also came to school with a large metal block like a snail-moving house. Not long after, Li Changming, Long Yusheng, and Yu Moyan also came one after another. Everyone's appearance was very strange, and there were many different styles. But overall, it was still to increase their endurance to the greatest extent. After roughly understanding the situation, each of them bid farewell to Zhuo and entered the school to cultivate. Zhuo was now in a state of suppression. He had suppressed his breakthrough many times in a row. It was fine for him to postpone his cultivation, but they had just reached the stage of suppression. They couldn't relax at all. This was the time when they might not be able to catch up even if they tried their best to catch up, let alone slacking off. Zhuo sat on the chair. A sage-like aura came from the 7 emotions. He laughed and said, "Bosses, I wonder why you're looking for me? Haha, there must be a lot of things you don't understand in this world. There are so many things you don't understand in this long world. There are so many things you don't understand." The one at the front of the line was a stout middle-aged man. He flattered, "I've long heard that Masters was well-versed in ancient and modern times. You've heard about the 3 realms. You're a man of integrity. There's nothing you don't know about in your past life and future life. I've long wanted to meet you." Masters laughed and accepted all the compliments. Then he said, "It's fate that we meet. Just get straight to the point." "Master, here's the thing." The fat man smiled apologetically. "My surname is Liu. My name is Liu Jianxi. Ahem. My occupation is a contractor in the construction industry. Recently, I've been feeling that things are not going well for me. The money I earn has been decreasing for some reason. And my marriage is not going well." Zhuo frowned. "Can you just tell me what you want to see?" The fat man was dumbfounded. He scratched his ears and cheeks and hesitated. Obviously, he wanted to see everything. Zhuo sighed and rubbed his fingers. Then he took out a piece of paper from his pocket and spread it on the table. He said, "The most taboo in fortune-telling is to make empty promises. I don't count the undestined method. I don't count the unprofitable method. Let's talk about this first." On the paper, Zhuo's bank account and bank were neatly written. The content was very detailed. Liu Jianxi was very straightforward. "Master, just give me a price. I won't bargain. It's fair to pay for fortune-telling." Zhuo frowned. "The more money you have, the more important things you can do. How can I give you a price? In this line of work, the most important thing is to follow fate. Do you understand?" Liu Jianzhu's eyes widened. "What? Idiot." Someone reminded him. "It means you can spend as much as you want. Masters doesn't have a fixed price. Do you understand? 1 yuan is fine. 1 million is fine. It depends on your own heart. The more money you have, the more important things you can do. Do you understand?" Zhuo glanced at this understanding person with admiration and said, "You can't say it like that. Money is only a way. We provide guidance to others, but we are not doing it for profit. Fate, the most important thing is fate. Everyone coming to my place is already fate itself." The man smiled apologetically and nodded. "Master, you're right. Fate is fate. We're fated people." Liu Jianxi understood more and more. I understand. Then he immediately took out his phone and began to transfer money. Zhuo didn't even look at his movements. He really allowed him to transfer as much as he wanted. Liu Jianzhu wanted to transfer 10,000 yuan at first, but he was reluctant after thinking about it. So he transferred 1,000 yuan and said, "Master, it's just a small token of my appreciation. Please don't mind." The tall, thin man behind him glanced at the transfer number and couldn't help but feel a little disdainful. He only transferred so little and he wanted to see everything. How stingy does Zhuo didn't care. He casually glanced at his face and said, "You don't have to see it. You're in a lot of trouble now. It's just one of the reasons." "Master, please enlighten me." Liu Jianxi was overjoyed. "Go to the side of the road. Do you see that willow tree over there?" Zhuo asked. "Yes, I see it." "Go break a willow branch. The fat man quickly went and then happily came back with a green willow branch. Master Zhua, you're back. The willow branch is here too. Look, is it green? At this moment, there were already people beside him who laughed in understanding. Lu Jianche's face suddenly changed. He hesitated and said, Master, this. Put it on your head and look at it again. Everything will be clear. Zhua Xiaoduo said lightly. Lu Jianche's face turned into the color of a pig's liver. Many people beside him also smiled. They were almost all experienced. This kind of thing didn't need to be explained clearly. The willow branch you broke was intentional. There are many forks on it. Zhua Xiaoduo said lightly. Your money, your people, your efforts, all have been divided by the forks. Go back. Lu Jianche's face was pale. Master, how should I solve this? Zhua Xiaoduo didn't say anything. He looked at his phone and saw that the bank transfer message had arrived. He said lightly, this is a family matter. I can't say much. I can't do anything more. Think about it yourself. The thin man at the back of the line was already impatient. Go, go, go. You're not leaving after seeing it. It's just a thank you gift of 1,000 yuan. Do you want to solve everything at Master's place? Master has a good temper. If it were me, I would have chased you away. I'd even give beggars more than this. Lu Jianzhu's face was red. He was angry but didn't dare to say anything. He squeezed out of the crowd with his tail between his legs. After he left the crowd, his face immediately turned fierce. I've long suspected that there's something wrong with you. Sure enough. Then he took out his phone. Private Detective Agency. The thin man sat in front of Zhua Xiaoduo with a smile and a respectful attitude. Master Zhua, I'm Qiao Zhongshan. Nice to meet you. Qiao Zhongshan. Zhua Xiaoduo looked at his face and said, You want to ask about money? Qiao Zhongshan said, Yes. I have a business deal recently. I can't make up my mind. Should I do it or not? Zhua Xiaoduo said, No need to say more. I'll give you 4 words. Please give me your instructions, Master. Zhua Xiaoduo closed his eyes and half reclined on the chair. He said lightly, Make a prompt decision. The thin man understood. 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 Thank you for your guidance, Master. He took out his phone and transferred 100,000 yuan without hesitation. After the deal is done, I'll definitely thank you again. Zhua Xiaoduo finally opened his eyes and praised. Your Excellency is very considerate. I see that your fortune, A small stream flows for a long time, an endless stream. A person with a good character will most likely have good fortune. The thin man was elated. Thank you, Master. Then, he transferred another 100,000 yuan and left happily. Next, he received 200,000 yuan just by looking at his fortune. Zhua Xiaoduo suddenly felt that the road in front of him was splendid. A golden path was slowly spreading out. Oh. Chapter 214. Master Zhua. An old woman sat down. She looked sad. Her clothes were clean but they were obviously worn out. An old man with wrinkles on his face stood beside her. They looked like a couple. I have no other choice. That's why I came to you, Master. The old woman's weather-beaten face was full of helplessness and despair. My old man and I used to be cultivators. But after we were plotted against, our lives changed completely. Originally, it would have been fine. That's how life is. Since we've embarked on this path, we've long been on guard against such situations and have no regrets. However, the other party took away our child. My only daughter was only 3 years old that year. Tears appeared in the old woman's dry eyes. 30 years have passed. We've been looking for her, but we couldn't find any clues. Master, please take a look. Can you still find my daughter? The old man beside him was silent. He took out an old wallet from his chest and took out all the money in the wallet. There were only a few $100s in total. Some were small, some were even, but it was obvious that he had emptied his wallet and took out everything he had. Zhua Xiaoduo was silent for a moment. He took $1 from the pile of money and pushed the rest of the money back. He said softly, If fate allows us to meet, then 1 gold coin will be enough for us to meet. If we are sincere, then 1 gold coin will be enough. Please take back the rest. He looked at the old woman's face and said in a low voice, Auntie, I can tell you with certainty. Your daughter is still alive. And soon you will be able to reunite as a family. The old woman's eyes widened. Really? Really? Swishaoduo asked softly. At that time, where did you lose your child? It's a long story. Back then we went to the Roaring Tiger Forest, which was adjacent to the Sun Moon Pass. However, we got lost there. We lived there for 10 years. And that was when I got together with him. The old lady sighed softly. My darling has been living in the Roaring Tiger Forest since she was born. She has never seen the outside world. We tried so hard and finally found a way out. We walked out of the Roaring Tiger Forest, but we encountered an enemy. The two of us were severely injured and our daughter was taken away. I see. Swishaoduo counted with his fingers and said, you should find a place to settle down temporarily. Don't go out and run around during this period of time. If I'm not wrong, your daughter is on the way to find her parents. Thank you for your guidance, Master. The couple wept tears of joy. In this lifetime, to be able to see Nan again. Even if I die immediately, I will be content. The husband and wife supported each other as they walked away. Everyone else present was waiting with a heavy heart. It was all because of the tragic experience of this couple. Swishaoduo looked at the backs of the couple with a heavy expression. Next, Swishaoduo looked at more than 10 people. Not only did the crowd in front of him not decrease, but it also increased. Master's was awesome. That's right. I heard that when he showed it to the Long family, he said that he was about to be unlucky. Guess what? Is there a need to guess? The news has spread throughout the city. Is the Long family going to be in trouble soon? Wrong. Not only is the Long family unlucky, they are unlucky twice. The night before, the Long family manor was completely destroyed and turned into ruins. Isn't that bad enough? But the next night, even the ruins were gone. It turned into a lake. It's all thanks to Master's Wa. If it weren't for Master's Wa's judgment, the whole Long family would have been turned into fish and shrimp. That's right, that's right. It's because it's so magical that I have to come and take a look. I've been feeling that things haven't been going well recently. Swishaoduo was never tired of reading people's faces. The more the better. In the past, he only complained that no one came to see him. Now that there were people coming naturally, he was very happy to greet them. There was no income in the Providence points for now, but in just 1 hour, the income had reached a terrifying amount of 400,000. These people are so honest and kind. I really like them. Swishaoduo was so happy that he couldn't close his mouth. After all, this amount of income was already very scary for Swishaoduo. Just when he was busy and happy, Hu Ruoyun came. Swishaoduo. Hu Ruoyun looked at the school entrance that looked like a wet market and said angrily, do you still want to go to class or not? Are you setting up a stall here? So slow to earn money like this. Why don't you go rent a house and do some fortune telling? In the whole school, no, in the whole Phoenix City, or even the whole continent of astral souls, among the people that Swishaoduo was most afraid of, Hu Ruoyun was one of the top 3, second only to his mother and sister. In this regard, Qin Fengyang and He Yuanyue were ranked behind. When Hu Ruoyun stood up, Swishaoduo stood at attention and smiled apologetically. Teacher Hu, Class, I'll go to class right away. Then he said, let's go. If you need anything, you can come at noon. I have an hour of rest at noon. And an hour of rest in the afternoon. Don't worry, things will be solved. Under everyone's regretful gazes, Swishaoduo quickly packed up, grabbed his bank card, and the promotional note and ran into the school. There was no one left in the class. Those who needed to train went to train, and those who had contribution points in hand used them to exchange for cultivation resources. Qin Fengyang was currently lying in shield. With his injuries, he definitely wouldn't be able to return in a short period of time. Swishaoduo naturally had to report to the gravity room. Swishaoduo, someone called from behind. Swishaoduo turned around and saw Bai Bingbing standing there. What's the matter? Bai Bingbing looked a little restrained. She was quite different from the cheerful person she was a few days ago. She even looked a little haggard. She said, have you had breakfast? I brought you your favorite big buns. There are 20 of them. As she spoke, she took out a big bag of meat buns. Bai Bingbing had been bringing breakfast for Swishaoduo for several days in a row. Swishaoduo would refuse every time, but Bai Bingbing obviously didn't give up. She reluctantly continued to bring him breakfast the next day. Bai Bingbing. Zhou Xiaoduo said seriously, I'll say it again seriously. I really can't like you because I already have a wife. You already have a wife? Bai Bingbing looked at Zhou Xiaoduo's young face. Even though her heart was heavy, she couldn't help but want to laugh. Eat, I just brought you a few buns. I don't want to be your wife. Is that so? Zhou Xiaoduo turned around and rushed into the gravity room. I know, don't bring them in the future. If my wife sees it, I'll be finished. Bai Bingbing's hand stopped in midair. Looking at Zhou Xiaoduo's back, her expression gradually became complicated. She held the bag of buns in her hand tightly and didn't move for a long time. After a while, she sighed softly and walked back. Halfway through, she threw the bag of buns into the trash can by the roadside and left with a heavy heart. After a long time, Hu Ruoyun appeared beside the trash can. She reached in and took out the buns. Then she took the buns and left. Go and check these buns. Hu Ruoyun handed the buns to Li Changjiang. Li Changjiang was a little puzzled. Still checking? You've been checking for 3 or 4 days. I just feel that something is wrong. Hu Ruoyun frowned. I hope I'm just overthinking. Okay. Li Changjiang said, I'll go now. Also, give me the test reports from the past few days. Okay. Noon. The test reports are out. Li Changjiang said, there's nothing wrong with these buns. There's just an extra Xiang root. Well, the Xiang root's main effect is to replenish the vitality of the astral souls. If it's eaten frequently, it will have a certain effect on strengthening the astral souls. Xiang root. Hu Ruoyun held a thick stack of test reports. Is everything here? Yes. Okay, I'll take them. Li Changjiang looked at his wife's figure and was a little puzzled. Ruoyun, in my opinion, this is just a young man's pursuit of the opposite sex because he has a good impression of the opposite sex. Don't you think you're making a mountain out of a molehill by being so paranoid? Hu Ruoyun said softly, I don't want to think of my student this way, but I keep feeling that this Bai Bingbing is different from before. She used to like to get close to Zhou Xiaoduo, but she used to be very bright and generous when she smiled. But since a few days ago, her smile has changed. She's still trying to get close to him, but she's not like before, walking over whenever she has time. Instead, she spends most of her time in a daze. She often seems to have a lot on her mind. Also, she's never sent food to Zhou Xiaoduo before, but these few days she's been acting strangely. She's been sending food every morning. She's been rejected today, but she continues the next day. Li Changjiang wondered, isn't this normal? It's not strange for a girl who's in love to do anything. Hu Ruoyun said faintly, you're not a woman. You don't understand women. Li Changjiang said, I think the problem is that Zhou Xiaoduo hasn't eaten even once, which made the girl feel frustrated. That's why she keeps sending food to him, hoping that he'll be moved once? Then why doesn't Zhou Xiaoduo eat? Hu Ruoyun said, or maybe Zhou Xiaoduo saw something. Li Changjiang felt that his wife was simply unreasonable. She was twisting words and forcing logic. Li Changjiang, you have to know one thing. If a girl really likes someone, even if she knows that there's no hope, her heart will still be filled with love. Under this kind of love, she will cry, she will be in a daze, she will look forward to it, she will daydream, and she will even laugh. However, he would never show a dull and somewhat stiff attitude. Do you understand? Hu Ruoyun took the test report and left. The reason why I felt that something was wrong and only asked you to do the test but I didn't say anything to the public is that I'm not sure. This is just my intuition. And a woman's intuition has never been reasonable. I hope that my intuition is wrong this time. Hu Ruoyun took the test report and went up to the top floor. Old principal. Monthly votes please. Chapter 215. Oh, it's Ruoyun. He Yuanyua's body was weak, and she was having a meeting at Shield in the early hours of the morning. Furthermore, Sister Lan was not around to look after her. She was lying on the wheelchair, dozing off, with only a thin blanket covering her body. What's the matter? There's a small matter. Hu Ruoyun felt a little regretful. She should have let He Yuanyue rest for a while. Her body wasn't well to begin with. She had been worried the whole night and stayed up all night. Now, she had to disturb her with something that she didn't even know existed. Say it. He Yuanyue was completely awake now. She lifted the blanket on her body and said, "You're not an ignorant person. Since you're here, it must be something important. There's something that I can't make up my mind about. I really don't know much about this field." "Say it." "There are a few edible herbs, including purple sunroot, dreamlingji grass, 9 complete vine juice, and honeygrass flower. Just these together with ordinary dishes and meat. Will it produce any special effects? Will it have the same effect as mixed poison?" He Yuanyue laughed. "How come you're researching mixed poison now?" She pondered for a moment and said, "The herbs you mentioned all have the same characteristics. It strengthens the vitality, nourishes the astral souls, and replenishes the vitality. And these herbs, if eaten alone, will not do any harm. They will only be beneficial." He Yuanyue said slowly, "But..." Hearing the word "but," Hu Ruoyun's heart skipped a beat. "These 4 herbs, if you eat the honeygrass flower on the first day and let the medicinal effects spread into the meridians, then eat the 9 complete vine juice, then eat the dreamlingji grass on the 3rd day, and eat the purple sunroot on the 4th day." He Yuanyue's face was serious. "If you eat the honeygrass flower on the 5th day, the medicinal effect of the 4 days will accumulate, and it will become an incurable poison." Hu Ruoyun's delicate body trembled. "An incurable poison?" "Yes, once the incurable poison is formed, the astral souls of the user will immediately shatter, and their 3 spiritual and 7 physical souls will disappear. However, very few people know about this method. Furthermore, there are clear regulations of the country that forbid the sale of these medicinal herbs together, especially the dreamlingji grass, which is the hardest to find. It's an extremely rare spiritual material, but it doesn't have much of a beneficial effect. Therefore, not many people know about this method of harming people." He Yuanyue asked, "Why? Did you find anything?" Hu Ruoyun gulped and said, "I did find something. I suspect that someone is using this method to deal with Zuoxiaoduo." "Huh?" He Yuanyue could not help but widen her eyes. "Zuoxiaoduo?" "Yes." Hu Ruoyun took out the test report and said, "Recently, a girl has been pursuing Zuoxiaoduo. I feel that her behavior is strange because at first it was pure affection. I can see and feel it, but recently her behavior has changed. Every morning she brings food to Zuoxiaoduo. Zuoxiaoduo does not eat, and Zuoxiaoduo does not eat, so it's fine if she takes it back. However, that girl always throws away the food she brings and brings it back the next day. I feel strange about this. Even if he doesn't eat it, she shouldn't throw it away, right? If she gives up and gives up, she won't bring it back the next day, so I took it for testing." Hu Ruoyun explained her analysis in detail, including the analysis of the girl's thoughts. "This is the test report from the first day. It found the ingredients of the honey grass flower. On the 2nd day, there was 9 whole vine juice. On the 3rd day, there was dreamlingji grass. On the 4th day, there was purple sunroot." Looking at the 4 test reports, He Yuanyue's eyes suddenly flashed with a sharp light. "Zuoxiaoduo did not eat it? You didn't eat it even once?" "Not even once," Hu Ruoyun said with certainty. "That's not right. If he didn't eat it on the first day, even if he ate it on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th days, it would be useless." He Yuanyue pondered and said, "If he didn't eat it on the first day, she should continue to send him the food with the honeygrass flower. She shouldn't have changed to the food with the 9 whole vine juice." Hu Ruoyun frowned and did not say anything. "Do you know why Zuoxiaoduo didn't eat it?" He Yuanyue asked. "I'm investigating this matter secretly. I haven't asked Zuoxiaoduo yet, and I'm also afraid that this is a misunderstanding. Since Zuoxiaoduo didn't eat it, and there's no danger now, then why don't we observe this matter first before we do anything else?" He Yuanyue reminded her, "Ruoyun, this matter is very likely to be more dangerous than you can imagine. So, you must pay attention to your own safety. If possible, try to delay it as much as possible. The strongest fighters in our school are all not here. If something happens, we won't be able to fight back at all." He Yuanyue said, "Just give Zuoxiaoduo a subtle reminder. That kid knows what's important and he's very sensitive to his own misfortune." "Understood." Watching Hu Ruoyun go out, He Yuanyue's eyes became deep. She looked at the tea in the teacup. The tea leaves that Hu Ruoyun just made for her were bobbing up and down. She did not move for a long time. "Meng Tianyue." The Ming family can't wait to kill Zhou Xiaoduo? If that's the case, why don't they just send a master to assassinate him directly? Why do they always play these little tricks? Do they want to quietly solve the problem? If I didn't know your intention before and couldn't see your faces clearly, maybe I would be fooled by you. But now, as soon as this matter came out, He Yuanyue immediately locked on to the suspect. The Ming family. Lan. She habitually wanted to call Sister Lan, but then she remembered that Sister Lan was now seriously injured and was recuperating at Star Shield. She shut her mouth. No matter what, this matter can't be revealed now. Once it is revealed, it will only intensify the conflict and put Zhou Xiaoduo in more danger. The water in Phoenix City is getting muddier and muddier. How did the Bai family and the Meng family hook up again? The Bai family has always been a family of poets and scholars. Could it be that they are being coerced? Zhou Xiaoduo was sweating profusely in the gravity room. His heart was filled with bewilderment. He didn't know what was going on. It was probably because he had absorbed a lot of spirit energy since he came to school this morning, but he didn't feel like breaking through even once. If it was yesterday, he should have at least 5 or 6 times of agitation. He couldn't figure it out. Why was this? If he couldn't figure it out, then he wouldn't think about it. Anyway, it's not a bad thing. It can help me become stronger and accumulate more foundation. Zhou Xiaoduo took out the medium-grade jade of astral souls again, and absorbed its energy. It's fine if I can't reach the breakthrough point for now. Although I don't know the specific reason, it's certain that I haven't accumulated enough. So, I'll continue to accumulate. The true Yuan in his body was quietly transforming into the scorching power of the Flaming Sun Sutra. Noon, 12 o'clock. Zhou Xiaoduo climbed out of the gravity room on time with the weights. After a short rest, he went to the cafeteria to eat. Zhou Xiaoduo ate quickly. It only took him 5 minutes to finish 3 or 4 bowls of rice. He wiped his mouth and walked out. When he reached a corner, he saw Wan Lixio hiding in a corner and eating alone. Wan Lixio's appetite was terrifying. As a girl, almost all girls would think about how to lose weight and diet to maintain their figure. But Wan Lixio ate at least 60 to 70 steamed buns for a meal. So much so that every time they had lunch in the cafeteria, Miss Wan would feel extremely conflicted and ashamed. But if she didn't eat, she would starve. She didn't have the strength to maintain her cultivation, so she could only hide in a corner and eat steamed buns. Long Yuxing sat behind her and tried his best to make his body as big as possible to block Wan Lixio's line of sight. This made Wan Lixio feel a little better. Yes, others can't see me. They can't see me. Zhou Xiaoduo walked over valiantly. He laughed loudly and said, Wan Lixio, have you finished 70 steamed buns? Wan Lixio's eyes bulged. She looked at him with a dumbfounded expression with a steamed bun in her mouth. She knew that this guy was despicable, but she didn't expect him to be despicable to this extent. His voice wasn't soft at all, so many people in the cafeteria turned to look in the direction of the voice. Zhou Xiaoduo looked over and laughed. Oh, there are still 7 or 8 steamed buns. You can continue to eat. If you don't have enough money in your meal card, you can swipe. Swipe Long Yuxing's meal card. Before his voice died away, Zhou Xiaoduo, who had finished his despicable act, disappeared with a whoosh. Wan Lixio, who was still in the corner, blushed. She almost stuffed her head into the wall. Long Yuxing's angry eyes showed that he wanted to kill someone. Despicable. What a despicable person. Long Yuxing muttered to himself. Wan Lixio swallowed the remaining 7 or 8 steamed buns as if they were Zhou Xiaoduo. Her face was red. I must kill him this afternoon. No one is allowed to stop me. I must beat him to death. Long Yuxing was shocked. Xiao, don't be impulsive. Wan Lixio roared crazily. She suddenly stood up and walked out valiantly to get food. What are you looking at? Haven't you seen such a beautiful girl? Wan Lixio was no longer shy when facing the scrutinizing eyes around her. She stared back valiantly. There was a sense of desperation. Everyone turned their heads to look at her valiantly. Wan Lixio was completely relaxed when Zhou Xiaoduo shouted. She directly put the bowl through the window. Give me another 20 steamed buns, 2 plates of mutton, 2 ox trotters, and half a kilogram of chili sauce. Thank you. She stomped her feet as if venting her anger. I didn't eat enough for the past few days because of my face. I must eat more today. 30 steamed buns make it 100. Li Changming, Li Changlong, and Yu Moyan, who were engrossed in eating, gave her a thumbs up. Xiao. Awesome. When Li Xiao walked back with the food, she held her head high and said, "What are you looking at? Can you afford to feed me with my appetite?" Long Yuxing shouted from behind, I can afford to feed you." There was another burst of laughter. All kinds of whistles rose to the sky. Chapter 216. After Zhuo was done with his daily routine, he ran out of the school to set up a stall to earn money. In less than an hour, he had seen 17 or 18 advertisements. His net income was 600,000. Adding it up with the one he had seen in the morning, it was 1 million. He had to admit that the effect of the advertisement was too good. In this world, there were too many people who were dissatisfied with their current situation, unwilling to accept their fate, or those who had nowhere to spend their money and wanted to buy a peace of mind. There's still an hour before school ends. Let's continue if we're fated. Zhuo Xiaoduo returned to the gravity room, but he was stopped by Hu Ruoyun at the door. "Zhuo Xiaoduo, I want to ask you something." Hu Ruoyun brought Zhuo Xiaoduo to her office without any explanation. "Tell me the truth. Why didn't you eat the food that Bai Bingbing brought for you?" Hu Ruoyun went straight to the point. She believed that Zhuo Xiaoduo would not lie to her. Zhuo Xiaoduo chuckled. "Teacher Hu, I'm a loyal man. I already have a wife. My love for my wife can only be expressed by the heavens. How can I eat the food that another woman brought for me?" Hu Ruoyun frowned. "Stop talking nonsense with a cheeky face. I want to hear the truth. This is the truth. If you don't want to say it, you can leave." Hu Ruoyun said sadly, "Xiaoduo, you can cultivate now. You can skip grades. You're already at the peak of martial master." Zhuo Xiaoduo panicked. "Teacher Hu, you can leave. I'll tell you the truth. I'll tell you the truth." "No, I'm not interested in listening anymore." Zhuo Xiaoduo rushed over and hugged Hu Ruoyun's arm, acting like a spoiled child. "Teacher Hu, I was just casually saying." Hu Ruoyun gave him a sidelong glance. I'll confess everything." Zhuo Xiaoduo scratched his head embarrassedly. Then, his expression turned serious. "First, I thought that Bai Bingbing was a good person. She had a good personality and dared to love and hate. However, ever since she began to bring me breakfast, I suddenly felt a sense of crisis. So I did a facial examination for her. A physiognomy." Hu Ruoyun's expression turned serious. She paused for a moment before asking, "Then what did you see?" "I can see a lot of things. Recently, Bai Bingbing's family has been troubled. She's been affected by an uncontrollable force. She's been shrouded in bad luck, and she's been surrounded by evil spirits. Most importantly, she's suddenly filled with malice towards me or her actions." Zhuo Xiaoduo's face twisted as he said, "Based on this reason, how would I dare to eat the food she gave me?" "Intuition." "It's not intuition." Zhuo Xiaoduo said, "I really know that the food she gave me has something bad in it. Why should I eat it?" Was he looking for trouble for himself? To take care of the feelings of someone who has malice towards me? Wouldn't that be stupid? Hu Ruoyun sighed softly. "I understand, but why don't you tell me more?" Hu Ruoyun was a little tired. There have been too many things happening recently. It's better to avoid trouble. Also, I'm pretty sure that Bai Bingbing didn't mean to harm me. Zhuo Xiaoduo paused for a moment before saying solemnly, "She was probably forced." "Forced?" "Yes, I was behind her, and I could see a thick darkness. If I insist on pursuing the truth of this matter, the truth will most likely be buried. Her whole family will be annihilated." Zhuo Xiaoduo took a deep breath and said, "Teacher Hu, I don't know how you noticed this. Maybe I'm a little soft-hearted, but I feel that I'm not hurt anyway. There's no need to kill her whole family. That's a little too much. Of course, my other purpose is to see if they can lure out the big fish behind the scenes when their plan fails and they change to another strategy. I want to see who it is." "Is there a third reason?" "Yes." Zhuo Xiaoduo said, "The third reason is, I'm afraid that if I expose the big fish behind the scenes, I won't be able to handle it. If everything is exposed, I won't be able to handle it. If Teacher Qin wasn't injured, I would have discussed this matter with him. But now, our second high school is full of injured soldiers and all the important generals are gone. If I act rashly now, I'll be courting death. Hu Ruoyun completely understood. I understand. Then you can go. Hu Ruoyun said. Since you know everything in your heart, I won't waste my breath to remind you. Zhou Xiaoduo said gratefully, Thank you, Teacher Hu. Thank you for your concern. Hu Ruoyun was stunned for a moment. She smiled and said, You child. Zhou Xiaoduo said softly, Your kindness is really worth remembering for the rest of my life. He took a step forward and gently hugged Hu Ruoyun. He said wholeheartedly, Thank you. Letting go of Hu Ruoyun, Zhou Xiaoduo turned around and left. She watched the office door close gently. Hu Ruoyun's eyes were slightly red. She smiled with tears in her eyes. It was a smile that came from the bottom of her heart. Although Hu Ruoyun didn't want Zhou Xiaoduo to know too much, and only wanted to silently pay attention to this child, it was obvious that Zhou Xiaoduo understood everything. He knew everything clearly and understood it all in his heart. If she didn't pay close attention to him for a long time, if she didn't pay close attention to every little thing, how could she discover such a thing? 5 years of repeating a grade, long-term attention, and this unbreakable teacher-student relationship had made Zhou Xiaoduo a child in Hu Ruoyun's heart. She was always concerned about him. She was like a loving mother, silently caring and paying attention to everything about her child. Just as Zhou Xiaoduo said himself, Zhou Xiaoduo will remember for the rest of his life. In the afternoon in the gravity room, Zhou Xiaoduo trained even harder and even risked his life. But even if it was so hard, his heart was always warm. In this world there were so many beautiful warm things that were worth remembering, worth protecting and worth cherishing. Even if he risked his life, he had to protect those things. I'm very happy. I'm so happy that I want to be cheap. It wasn't until the afternoon, when it was close to 5 o'clock, that the feeling of being on the verge of a breakthrough surged like a tide again. And this time it was a feeling that couldn't be controlled at all, a feeling that couldn't be suppressed. At least in Zhou Xiaoduo's mind, his dantian couldn't hold it anymore. Although Zhou Xiaoduo was still trying to gather all of his true qi as much as possible, wave after wave of true qi kept surging over. Or to put it another way, if one drank too much, to the point where he couldn't control himself and wanted to vomit, even if the person was still sober and knew that he didn't want to vomit, he would force himself to swallow it back. But the next wave of even more intense feeling would come and continue to surge out. Cough cough, anyone who was drunk before would know that. Those who weren't drunk should try their best not to try it. That feeling was really uncomfortable. It took Zhou Xiaoduo 40 minutes just to suppress this breakthrough. But that restless feeling was still there. It seemed that if he used a little bit of his true qi, it would set off a tsunami again. At this moment, the true qi in his body filled his entire dantian and spread all the way from the dantian to the breakthrough, leaving only a small part before the breakthrough. Or it should be said that his dantian was full to the extreme. This power was destined to not return, because there was no place for it. The main reason why he was sure of this was that Zhou Xiaoduo used the cooling power of the form of heaven and man. Although he suppressed it, he also understood his current situation. But I haven't surpassed Nian Nian Cat's record. Could it be that there's something wrong with my talent? Zhou Xiaoduo's mind was almost in a daze, but he kept remembering this matter. I think I've only suppressed 19 times. This situation lasted until he returned home. And when he returned home, the investigation by Star Shield finally came to a conclusion. Director General, the 2 men who have been following Shang Qingyun since she was in the governor's mansion have confessed under torture. The 2 people had already been caught in the morning under the crazy search of all the experts in Star Shield. What did they confess? Is there any important information? Shang Qingyun is very likely to be the left minister of the Big Dipper. He's the Star Master below the Star Monarch. Star Monarch? Star Master? Is this confirmed? I'm 90% sure. Jiang Wenzhou's eyebrows were completely furrowed. Generally speaking, there's only one Star Master below the Star Monarch, who assists the Star Monarch in handling matters related to the GAL. So why is the left minister of the stars in Phoenix City? And he hasn't moved for decades? He hasn't moved for so many years. What is he waiting for? The left minister of the stars. This is the existence of cooperation. So, who is Shang Qingyun cooperating with? Logically speaking, there must be more important things that require the left minister of the stars' assistance. That's why he's here. So, who is he assisting? Jiang Wenzhou only felt that this case was getting bigger and more complicated as he investigated. The more he investigated, the more his head hurt. Especially after confirming Shang Qingyun's identity, he was shocked to find that the secret hidden in this might be a shocking puzzle that even he couldn't completely understand. In the moment Shang Qingyun's identity was confirmed, that was when the people in Star Shield reported, Shang Qingyun should be the left minister of the Big Dipper. He's the Star Master below the Star Monarch. Zhou Xiaoduo, who had just returned home and was still trying to suppress himself, suddenly felt a flood of good fortune falling from the sky. Well, actually, it was 2 drops of coolness that fell from the sky and went straight into his brain. This was really a windfall from the sky. Of the 2 drops of coolness, half went into his reserves, and the other half turned into coolness that merged into all the meridians in Zhou Xiaoduo's body. In an instant, all the meridians in his body were nourished and widened again. Their flexibility also increased out of nowhere, and almost doubled. What was even more surprising was that his energy center, which had swollen to the limit, actually widened again. It's time for the second watch today. I'll rest for a few days before erupting again. Chapter 217. With just a thought, Zhou Xiaoduo's true origin, which had been blocked in his meridians and was about to break through at any time, all returned to his dantian. That obedient force was like an extension of his arm. What's more, Zhou Xiaoduo felt that his dantian still had plenty of true origin left. That was to say, he could accumulate even more resources and strengthen his foundation even more. Zhou Xiaoduo groaned. Suddenly, he felt so good that he could go to heaven. It turned out that he had used too little cooling power previously, which was why it was difficult to achieve results. But now he had used a whole drop at once. The effect was indeed extraordinary, and the effect was immediate. However, Zhou Xiaoduo was completely dumbfounded as to where these 2 drops came from. Where did they come from? Recently, I haven't seen any big fortune. What's going on? Well, the surprises did not stop there. They continued to come. Just after these 2 drops of cooling power arrived, only 10 minutes later, another drop suddenly entered his account. Once again, Zhou Xiaoduo felt refreshed, and his whole body trembled. Strange, this is really strange. The only thing Zhou Xiaoduo could think of was, last night when he saw Zhou Xiaonian and his fortune, the people closest to him were in a life and death situation, and this life and death situation was obviously resolved. That was why these providence points came. But why were there 3 drops? And why did they come separately? Which drop came from which side? He had no clue at all. But it didn't matter which side it came from, as long as he could force the true origin back. Well, not bad, not bad. Now the number of providence points that he could use had climbed to a new peak. He had a total of 7 drops in reserve, plus the 3 drops that he used. It seemed that the reserve was full. Then, was this fortune-telling technique going to be upgraded? However, Zhou Xiaoduo waited for a long time, but there was no movement. It's better to focus on cultivation. When it's time, it will naturally come. With 3 extra drops, he could at least suppress it a few more times. How delightful. It had to be said that Zhou Xiaoduo was very easily satisfied now. I don't need to compare myself to anyone. I only need to improve faster than my classmates. I only need them to be no match for me when I'm being mean to them every day. That's all. I just need to be more steadfast than Yan Mao. I just need to be stronger than I was yesterday. I just need to be able to earn $1 million every day. I just need to reach Uncle Nan's level. I just need to surpass Yan Mao as soon as possible. Zhou Xiaoduo sighed, feeling wronged. As long as I can achieve these goals, I will be satisfied. Upon hearing this, Wu Yuding and Zhou Chonglu rolled their eyes in unison. After eating, Zhou Xiaoduo didn't hide in his room as usual. Instead, he walked around the living room and tried to find something to talk about. Mom, Nian Nian didn't come back for dinner and you didn't even call me. This can't go on. Wu Yuding rolled her eyes as she washed the dishes. Actually, girls have to follow the rules and be reserved when they grow up. Not returning home at night was unacceptable. Mom, don't you think so? Zhou Xiaoduo continued to walk around. Wu Yuding continued to roll her eyes. Mom, now that I can cultivate, and I'm a genius, I'm not completely unworthy of Nian Nian Mao, right? Zhou Xiaoduo muttered to himself. His wild ambition was obvious. This time Zhuchanglu, who was sitting on the sofa and reading the newspaper, couldn't help but look up at him and roll his eyes. Do you think Nian Kitten will feel inferior if I continue to be so outstanding? Plus, she's 3 years older than me. Sigh, Nian Kitten must be suffering. Zhou Xiaoduo shook his head. But she shouldn't feel inferior. This girl is very thick-skinned. She's already decided to stay in our house. Sigh, poor me. I've been targeted since I was young. It's a sin to be handsome. Dad, you told me not to think about it that day. Nian Mao and I are from 2 different worlds. I think you're wrong. Zhou Xiaoduo saw that no one was paying attention to him after he talked to himself for so long. He simply sat in front of Zhuchanglu and started to talk about old scores. He felt that he needed to change his father's feudal thinking. It wouldn't do to always be a busybody. Zhuchanglu looked at the newspaper and didn't say anything. He pretended that someone didn't exist. Look at me now. I'm handsome and hardworking. I'm smart and honest. I'm a genius. I can even make money by reading people's faces. Dad, I know you were just talking about it that day. In fact, you still voted for us to get closer to Nian Cat. Zhuchanglu sighed and put the newspaper down. There was no other reason. He couldn't bear to watch or listen to this anymore. I know what you're worried about. Right now, Nian Mao's realm is only 1 or 2 levels higher than mine. But for your son, this distance is nothing. Zhou Xiaoduo stuck out his tongue and tried to brainwash his father. He opened his mouth and said, I'm not worried about not being able to find a wife, but Nian Mao pesters me every day. So annoying. I don't know how many young ladies like me. However, the fear in his heart that his wife would grow wings and fly away was still exposed. Zhuchanglu leaned back on the sofa and closed his eyes. He seemed to be asleep. Dad, just nod. Actually, it's one thing to let nature take its course. But feelings, love, if there's a parent's blessing, it's quite good. If you don't say anything, I'll take it as your acquiescence. You can take back what you said the other day. Thank you, Dad. Zhou Xiaoduo, who had directed and acted himself, drew and painted himself, bowed deeply to him. In the kitchen, Wu Yuding held her stomach and laughed silently until tears came out. Zhuchanglu finally stopped pretending to be asleep. He stood up with a speechless face and strolled into the study. But it's so annoying. In the future, no one will be able to wake up a person who's pretending to be asleep. A voice that's as annoying as a fly is the biggest nemesis of a person who's pretending to be asleep. Just as he was about to close the door, he was surprised to see Zhou Xiaoduo walking in behind him. He looked at him innocently and said, Dad, I'm going to take a look in your study. What do you want to see? Zhuchanglu finally spoke. There's something important. Something good. Zhou Xiaoduo winked and looked behind him like an underground worker. Zhuchanglu glared at him. Ignoring him, he walked to the desk and sat down. Zhou Xiaoduo closed the door sneakily, then sneaked in front of Zhuchanglu and lowered his voice. Dad, your son is going to give you a surprise today. A big surprise. Zhuchanglu raised his eyelids helplessly. What do you think this is? Zhou Xiaoduo showed his bank card and smiled evilly. Dad, I know that you've been under my mother's care all these years. Your son would like to express his deep sympathy and condolences. Zhuchanglu's eyes suddenly flashed with a strange light. Zhou Xiaoduo said in a low voice, Dad, there's 1 million in this card. I've already transferred it to you. 900,000. How about that? Your son is filial enough, right? Zhuchanglu frowned and looked at Zhou Xiaoduo. Son of a bitch, just tell me what you want. I really don't want to do anything. I just want to be filial to you. Zhou Xiaoduo said seriously. I just want to make life easier for you and Mom. Zhuchanglu's eyes were deep. Zhou Xiaoduo had already put away his sloppy appearance and said softly, Dad, ever since I kept repeating grades, I knew that our family wasn't rich. I saved up for so many years. I couldn't bear to spend money. It wasn't because I was stingy. I just thought that if I saved up more, I would tell you that your son has grown up. I've been thinking about this for the past few days too. Zhou Xiaoduo grabbed Zhuchanglu's hand and begged, Dad, Sister Nian and I are already grown up. In fact, we can solve many things on our own. Whether it's resources or weapons, we have all settled down. You don't call Uncle Nan and Uncle Wu over anymore. Okay. Zhuchanglu's eyes were deep and bottomless. He said in a low voice, Why? I know. You and Mom have a lot of difficulties to live in seclusion here in Phoenix City. But since you've been living in seclusion for so many years, I don't want you to be in danger anymore. I don't want others to know about your existence, including old friends like Uncle Nan. Only the secrets that you know are the real secrets. I just want you and Mom to be safe. Swishaoduo said seriously, now that I've grown up I can make money. I know that I have the ability to take care of this family. You and Mom can rest in peace. Okay. Recuperate. Zhuanglu frowned, keenly grasping these two words. Whether it's to rest in peace or to live in seclusion, Sister Nian Nian and I hope. You've been living in seclusion for so many years, don't let outsiders know. Uncle Wu and Uncle Nan have already come. We can't do anything about it. But in the future we don't want you to take any more risks. Swishaoduo said seriously, almost pleadingly. Zhuanglu didn't speak for a long time. With his age and experience, he naturally understood his son's intentions. Although Zhuanglu's guess was very far from the truth, Zhuanglu's heart was still fiercely touched by his son at this moment. At this moment there was only one feeling, and that was, this son was worth having. Gently patting Zhuanglu's hand, Zhuanglu smiled gently and said, Okay, Dad will listen to you. Swishaoduo smiled and finally stood up. Why don't you give the money to your mom? Why do you want to give it to me? Zhuanglu asked curiously. What I said just now was from the bottom of my heart. It's really not easy for you. Besides, once the money is in my mom's hands, our family will be as poor as before. My mom wouldn't be willing to spend it. It's better to give it to you. Swishaoduo smiled. Besides, I'm a boy and I always feel embarrassed talking to Mom. As for Mom, there's naturally Sister Nian Nian to win her over. Chapter 218. Ha ha ha. Zhuanglu let out what was probably the most carefree, most comfortable laugh he had ever let out in his entire life. You brat. You have quite a lot of ideas. Not bad, not bad. Swishaoduo laughed embarrassedly. Zhuanglu only felt that the mark of the great path in his body suddenly began to accelerate. He couldn't help but let out a soft sigh. So this is life. He raised his head and looked at the opposite side of the desk. There was a calligraphy painting hanging there. At a glance it seemed to be a landscape of clouds and mist, but it was flowing slowly. In the end it would form a word. Dao. Zhuanglu looked at the painting and said softly, Dao. This is the Dao of life. In his voice there was happiness, relief and slight doubt. It seemed to be saying, your so-called Dao before is wrong. That night, Zhuanglu and Wu Yuding went to bed very late. The two of them chatted softly. Zhuanglu said to Wu Yuding in a very satisfied, very comfortable, and very happy tone, my Dao has loosened. Wu Yuding was stunned. Is that true? This time it's really loosened. I even feel like it's cracking. This level is no longer difficult. As long as I casually rush it, I can pass it. Zhuanglu seemed to be very satisfied. Why is that? Wu Yuding asked. You might not believe it, but at night in the study, Xiaoduo came to me. Zhuanglu slowly told her what Swishaoduo said to him, not missing a single word. As Wu Yuding listened, she suddenly burst into laughter. This brat's guess is not bad. It's just that his direction is off. It's worlds apart from the truth. Zhuanglu said in a deep voice, in fact, from the 2 times I asked Xiao Nan and old Wu to come over, we should have been mentally prepared. Xiao Nian and Xiao Duo are both smart children. It would be strange if they didn't suspect anything. And Xiao Duo's direction of thinking is really not wrong. As a child, what he was most worried about was the integrity of his family, as well as peace and happiness. Connecting the dots with the past, little Nan and old Wu, especially their attitudes, his first suspicion was that they were hiding from their enemies due to serious injuries and the loss of their cultivation base. This was originally the most reasonable judgment. After all, he wasn't as profound as us, so he didn't have the experience and knowledge in this area. As for being heavily injured or having his cultivation sealed, that's the most logical guess we're making right now. Wu Yuding agreed. That's right. But it was the conversation between father and son yesterday that touched my Taoist heart. Zhuanglu stretched his limbs and lay on the bed contentedly. He said, this is not the excitement of a breakthrough. but the happiness of a sensible child. Then is their guess okay? It's okay, Zhuochanglu said. Just let them go in the direction of their guess. The road that should be paved has been paved. In the future, let's see how far these two can go by themselves. Wu Yuding snuggled in Zhuochanglu's arms. She only felt that she was so happy. Her son and daughter were so sensible and talented, and her husband was so gentle and considerate. Suddenly, she felt that she had reached the peak of her life. What else could she ask for? She couldn't help murmuring, "It's so good. The long road, I suddenly feel that it's really good to live like this for the rest of my life." Zhuochanglu smiled and held her arm a little tighter. He sighed and said, "Isn't it good? Perhaps these few decades will be the time when the two of us will truly enjoy life. Enjoy life. Enjoy life." Zhuo Xiaonian had been back and forth these days. She was so busy that she had to go to Star Shield to take care of her master. She also had to deal with the Meng siblings. She came back late at night. She was exhausted. This time Mu Yinyan was seriously injured. The physical injury was not a big deal. The most important thing was the heartache. The second senior brother, whom she had a good relationship with and took care of, turned out to be a spy of the UMNO alliance. This hit her directly to the heart. Her other three senior brothers also became silent and worried. Meng Chanyu and Zhuo Xiaonian kept visiting, which made Mu Yinyan feel even more complicated. On one hand, she felt comforted when she saw Zhuo Xiaonian. On the other hand, she felt disappointed and disgusted when she saw Meng Chanyu. Every time she saw Meng Chanyu, Mu Yinyan couldn't help but think of her second senior brother. They were the same. The disguise was good. Mu Yinyan, who really didn't want to see Meng Chanyu, simply ordered Meng Chanyu to go back and cultivate. She shouldn't visit if there was nothing important. This matter swept the whole Phoenix City in an instant. Including the Meng family and the Ning family, they had to be carefully investigated by Star Shield. Zhuo Xiaoduo wanted to visit Qin Fangyang, but he was sternly refused by Qin Fangyang. "I won't die. The only thing you need to do now is to practice hard. Suppress the accumulation. When you come back, if I don't see great progress, I will break your legs." When Zhuo Xiaonian went home and reported Qin Fangyang's words, she didn't hide her gloating. "Dog, you need to be careful of your dog's legs. If you don't make great progress, Teacher Qin will break your legs." Zhuo Xiaoduo was stubborn. "TSK, I've made great progress, okay? You don't even know how much progress I've made. A mere great progress is nothing." In fact, he had begun to panic. He hadn't had the feeling of a breakthrough for 2 days. Could it be that the 3 drops of cooling power were really that effective? That change. It was like expanding a lake into a sea. No matter how hard he tried to absorb spiritual energy, he couldn't fill it up. This situation was completely different from before. Now I have only accumulated 25 times. I'm still a dozen times away from surpassing Nian Nian Mao. This kind of progress really can't be considered great. Zhuo Xiaoduo was worried. What should he do? That afternoon, Zhuo Xiaoduo absorbed more than 40 mid-grade astral souls jade. But the capacity of his dantian was still not used up. In the blink of an eye, a week had passed. In Zhuo Xiaoduo's record, a record quietly changed to 27 days to go before Nian Nian Mao's breakthrough. In the past few days, Zhuo Xiaoduo's fortune-telling business had become more and more popular. Especially after a few people came back to thank him a few days ago. Master Zhuo's reputation had taken another step forward. He was like the sun in the sky. It was too accurate. After 7 days, Zhuo Xiaoduo's fortune-telling income had reached a terrifying 5 million. This time Master Zhuo was completely arrogant. When he got home, he actually started to pay his family the kind that was blatant. "Dad, this is your salary for the past few days. 2 million. Mom, this is your salary for the past few days. 2 million. Zhuo Xiaoduo was extremely rich. "Nian Nian Mao, come and get your salary." Zhuo Xiaonian pinned Zhuo Xiaoduo on the sofa with a backhand move. She twisted his hands and kneed him in the back. Then she slowly took Zhuo Xiaoduo's entire card. "What's the password?" Zhuo Xiaonian asked. "Don't even think about it. Zhuo Xiaoduo would rather die than surrender. Just give me the password and I'll take care of it for you. Don't even think about it. Are you going to give it to me or not?" "No." This time Zhuo Xiaoduo showed a never-before-seen stubbornness. Regardless of Zhuo Xiaonian's torture, threats, and promises, he was still unyielding. You want my life? Easy. You want my money? Impossible. When it came to the sovereignty of one's life, Zhuo Xiaoduo would not give in. Zhuo Xiaonua cried out. Wu Yuding sighed. She felt that her daughter was really stupid. She wanted a man to hand over the password, but she actually beat him up? She was too inexperienced in life. Her EQ had been dragged down to the bottom. Nian Nian, since Xiao Duo doesn't want to give it to you, then forget it. What you're doing is wrong. Wu Yuding hinted with a double meaning. Zhuo Xiaonian rolled her eyes and let go of Zhuo Xiaoduo. She asked in a low voice, I'll ask you one last time. Are you going to give it to me or not? No. Zhuo Xiaoduo was furious. He stomped his feet. His tone was firm and resolute. There was no room for discussion. Forget it if you don't want to give it to me, Zhuo Xiaonian said in a lonely voice. She said lightly, It's not like I don't have money. Why do I need you to give me a salary? After that, she turned around and went back to eat. Zhuo Xiaoduo breathed a sigh of relief and went back to eat as well. Zhuo Xiaonian had only eaten 2 mouthfuls when her eyes suddenly turned red. Tears fell from her eyes. Zhuo Xiaoduo was shocked when he saw this. His heart suddenly thumped. All that was left in him was heartache. Zhuo Xiaonian ate 2 more mouthfuls. Her eyes turned even redder, and her tears fell directly. Zhuo Xiaoduo could not sit still. He hurriedly leaned over and whispered, What's wrong with you? Zhuo Xiaonian ignored him completely. She twisted her waist and turned her head. Suddenly, she covered her face and started sobbing. Why? Are you crying? Zhuo Xiaoduo was anxious. What's going on? Zhuo Xiaonian just ignored him. She cried harder and harder. More and more tears fell. Zhuo Xiaoduo said tentatively, It's not like I can't give you my password. If you really want it. He thought to himself, If you want my password, I'll definitely not give it to you. Zhuo Xiaonian just cried and completely ignored him. She did not even talk about the password. In the end, she just put down her chopsticks and stopped eating. After a long time, she stood up and quietly walked to her room. Zhuo Xiaoduo was stunned. You're not eating? Zhuo Xiaonian acted as if she did not hear him. She walked into her room and slammed the door. Zhuo Xiaoduo was restless. He was only half full, but he felt like he could not eat anymore. He said anxiously, Dad, Mom, look. What's wrong? Zhuo Chonglu rolled his eyes and did not say anything. Wu Yuding sighed and said, You brat, what you did today was too out of line. Your sister Nian Nian's background is pitiful. You gave us money so openly and said it was salary. You must have reminded her of something sad. Sigh, poor child. Zhuo Xiaoduo's heart suddenly ached. Yes, Nian Nian was so pitiful. Chapter 219. Zhuo Xiaoduo sat at the dining table unable to eat. He thought for a while and said, No, I have to go take a look. He walked to Zhuo Xiaonian's door and knocked gently. Sister Nian Nian, open the door. Wu Yuding and Zhuo Chonglu looked at each other. Zhuo Chonglu looked helpless. Zhuo Xiaonian didn't open the door. Zhuo Xiaoduo begged, but Zhuo Xiaonian insisted. Zhuo Xiaoduo tried to force the door open, but Zhuo Xiaonian resisted and cried, I won't let you in. Zhuo Xiaoduo was already sweating profusely. If you let me in, I'll tell you the password. Who cares about your password? Zhuo Xiaonian said angrily, I can earn my own money. Do you think I can earn less than you? You've been eating my food for so many years. Do you think I care about your money? After saying that, she cried even more bitterly and fiercely. Zhuo Xiaoduo suddenly felt extremely guilty. His guilt was bursting through the roof. Yes, hadn't Nian Nian been secretly giving him money to spend all these years? Sigh. Even if you don't want it, I'll give it to you. Zhuo Xiaoduo shouted. I don't want it. I'm begging you. Just take my password. Zhuo Xiaoduo begged a dozen times. The door opened quietly. Zhuo Xiaonian looked at him with red eyes. Her lips were swollen from crying. Zhuo Xiaoduo quickly handed over his bank card. Sister Nian Nian, don't cry. Here. Even though you don't have it. You still have Dad, Mom, and me. The password is 00902. It's your birthday. Hee. I don't want it. No. I don't want it. I'm begging you, please take it. I still don't want it. Woof. Sister Nian Nian, take it, woof woof woof. Woof woof. Zhuo Duo moved closer and said with a drooling face, woof woof? Woof woof woof. Zhuo Nian smiled through her tears, what a shame. It's better if you take the card. Zhuo Nian bit her lips and said, I don't really want you. I just need to know the password. Alright. Can you come back and eat some more? Zhuo Duo pulled Zhuo Nian over to the dining table with great care. He picked up the chopsticks and wiped them clean before handing them over. He then scooped a bowl of soup and placed it beside her. Following that, he picked up more food and served her attentively as if there was no one else around. Sister Nian Nian, eat this. Eat this. Zhuo Nian lowered her head, as if she was still feeling a little down. However, she still picked up the chopsticks and ate in small bites. Zhuo Duo heaved a sigh of relief. Suddenly, he felt a sense of hunger in his heart again. He started to eat and drink as much as he could. His appetite was even better than usual. When Zhuo Duo wasn't paying attention, Zhuo Nian gently made a victory sign to Wu Yuding with her right hand. Wu Yuding choked and immediately started coughing. Zhuo Chonglu, who was beside her, looked as if he couldn't bear to look back. Looking at his son who was begging her to accept his bank password and still had a sense of accomplishment and relief, he deeply felt that this world was indeed not a world dominated by men. Or perhaps, men dominated the world, and women indirectly dominated the world through dominating men. After Zhuo Duo finished his meal, he coaxed Zhuo Nian for a while before he was relieved. He was extremely gentle and caring towards her. After that, he begged Zhuo Nian to accompany him to practice martial arts and hidden weapons. Zhuo Nian coldly agreed. Zhuo Duo was actually very happy. They practiced until 1:30 in the morning. The three small gourds flew 200 meters and landed on a large tree that required two people to wrap their arms around. The landing point was right in the center of the 3 by dots that Zhuo Nian had drawn with chalk. It was a perfect hit. Zhuo Nian turned around and looked behind the tree. She nodded in satisfaction and confirmed that the gourds didn't break through. She then cut the tree and found the 3 small gourds at a third of the tree. Your control is not enough, Zhuo Nian said with a cold face. My request is for you to break through half of the gourds and then deviate the trajectory to destroy the target's meridians as much as possible. You've broken through 2/3 of the tree and deviated the trajectory a little, so you can't achieve the damage you want. Whether it's the target's injury or your own judgment of the target's injury, there's a considerable amount of deviation. If it's an actual battle, the target seems to have been hit but actually has the ability to fight back. You may be in danger because of your misjudgment. Zhuo Duo came over to take a look and nodded. Zhuo Nian's words were not nitpicking, but penetrating insight. Fine of 500 yuan. 10 more times. Zhuo Nian said. Okay. A few minutes later. Hit a third of the way through. Shoot all 3 at once. The one on the left will go straight through, the one in the middle will deviate to the left by 10 centimeters, and the one on the right will deviate to the right by 5 centimeters before changing to the front by 5 centimeters. One more time. Punch through 2/3 of the one on the left, 10 centimeters to the right. Punch through 1/3 of the one in the middle, 10 centimeters to the right. Punch through 4/5 of the one on the right, 3 centimeters to the left. Zhuo Nian made all kinds of strange requests, and Zhuo Duo did them one by one. The punishment was simple. If he failed the first time, he would transfer 100 yuan to Zhuo Nian. The second time he would transfer 500 yuan to Zhuo Nian. The third time 1,000 yuan. The fourth time 1,500 yuan. The fifth time 2,000 yuan. The sixth time 3,000 yuan. The seventh time 5,000 yuan. The eighth time 10,000 yuan. The ninth time 15,000 yuan. The 10th time 20,000 yuan. This punishment was proposed by Zhuo Nian. Zhuo Duo, who had just made Zhuo Nian cry, didn't dare to say no. He made the decision on the spot. They trained for the whole night, until 2 o'clock in the morning. Zhuo Nian took out her phone and entered Zhuo Duo's bank password to check the current balance. The balance is 736 yuan. That's all for tonight. We'll continue tomorrow. Zhuo Nian was very happy. Let's go, doggy. Let's go home. Zhuo Duo, on the other hand, was grief-stricken. He still couldn't understand. How did the rhythm of things suddenly change to this point? Ever since the situation at the dinner table changed, he had been on the decline. He was on the verge of collapse and things couldn't be stopped. He had been defeated all the way until now. Damn, why did I agree to this kind of training method? Even if I get a crown prince to be my training partner, it won't cost 5 million yuan for a night. Zhuo Duo felt that there was something wrong with his brain. I spent 5 million yuan for a night. Damn. My father isn't the richest man in the world, and my family doesn't have a mine. How did I spend 5 million yuan for a night? This reality made Mr. Zhuo, who had always been stingy and greedy for money, almost pass out. He didn't feel it when he was training, but now that he saw the money flowing in, he couldn't help but be shocked. How did he spend so much? Hiss hiss hiss. Zhuo Duo sucked in cold air along the way. His heart ached indescribably. When I, Zhuo Duo, went home this afternoon, I had a huge sum of 5,500,000 on my card. After a meal I still had 5 million yuan on my card. After a night of training I still had 736 yuan on my card. This money was really spent quickly, and the most amazing thing was that I didn't spend it at all. I didn't even buy a piece of candy. Doggy. Zhuo Xiaonian's mood had completely turned for the better. She said, actually, you don't have to look so sad. I'll give you a chance to earn it back. Earn it back? How do I earn it back? Zhuo Duo was heartbroken. In the future, when you train, I'll set a goal for you. If you meet my requirements on the first try, I'll give you 100,000 yuan. If you meet the second and third time accurately, I'll give you 500,000 yuan. We have a lot of training methods. If you can meet the first 3 times accurately, you can earn more than 1 billion yuan. Zhuo Xiaonian said. More than 1 billion yuan. Zhuo Xiaoduo's breathing became a little rapid. Really? Of course. But do you have that much money? Zhuo Duo suddenly thought of another important point. His face was full of doubts. That's none of your business. Zhuo Xiaonian said, as long as you can do it, I won't go back on my word. It's a deal? Promise is a promise. Okay. Just wait and see. Zhuo Duo suddenly felt that his whole body was full of fighting spirit. If that's the case, the small amount of money I gave you today is just a temporary deposit. When I master the hidden weapon, I'll even win your dowry. Wahahaha. Then you have to work hard. The training will continue tomorrow night. But if you don't have money, I won't play with you anymore. In short, if you have money, we'll continue. If you don't have money, then don't talk about it. Zhuo Xiaonian pouted. No problem. Zhuo Duo was full of confidence. He had a lot of customers coming to his door. He was always rich. Do you think I'm short of money? What a joke. In these 7 days, Zhuo Duo was working hard to improve his cultivation. Phoenix City was turned upside down several times. Not a single person with a cultivation base was left out. All of them were checked thoroughly. Don't go? If you don't go, you're a spy. You'll be wanted. With such a strong force, many of the UMNO Alliance's spies were caught. Even the Ning family and the Meng family had many suspects arrested. Jiang Wenzhou was in charge here. The experts of the Star Shield General Administration of the Central Plains came in large numbers. Their combat power was unprecedented. No one dared to act rashly. The director of the Star Shield General Administration of the Phoenix City, Zhang Zhongbin, was suspended. The Yang family of the Central Plains came from afar to bury Yangyu. All 98 members of the Star Shield General Administration of the Dragon Blood Team came to see their brother off. Their white robes fluttered in the sky above Phoenix City. The funerals of the 2 soul transformation experts were also held at the same time. It was also at this moment that Phoenix City finally became the focus of the entire Central Plains. After the funerals, 2 members of the Dragon Blood Team stayed. One was Han Song and the other was an expert of the Yang family. Obviously, they planned to continue to monitor the movements in Phoenix City. Since the left assistant Star Master appeared here, there must be someone he wants to help. There must be a reason why Shapa and Lang are gathered in Phoenix City. We have to put an end to the whole thing. We have to avenge Yangyu. An unprecedented pressure descended upon Phoenix City like dark clouds covering the sky. All the martial arts schools in the city, without exception, were inspected once again. Chapter 220. The entire Phoenix City was trembling with fear, and no one dared to make a move. In a real sense, the city had never experienced peace for many years. Everyone, regardless of whether they were martial artists or ordinary people, was living with their tails between their legs. They were afraid that they would be caught by the Star Shield General Administration if they were not careful. Now, because of the death of the Dragon Blood team, the Star Shield General Administration was like a hungry wolf, looking at everyone with evil intentions. At this time, no one wanted to look for trouble. If something went wrong, it was their own bad luck. On the 6th day, Qin Fengyang returned to the second high school with Sister Lan. Although the two of them were still a little weak, their injuries had recovered 80 to 90%. There was no major problem. After all, they were nascent soul powerhouses. After receiving the best treatment, they could recover quickly. Mu Yanyan and her 3 fellow apprentices, who had also recovered from their injuries, still felt ashamed. There was a traitor on their side, who directly led to the death of Yang Yu. If they did not give a proper explanation, it would be inexcusable. For this reason, Mu Yanyan and her fellow apprentices reported this matter to the higher-ups of the Kunlun Taoist sect. The sect was also collectively shocked. For this reason, they paid a considerable amount of compensation. After all, Duan Tianyu's betrayal caused such a serious problem. The Kunlun Taoist sect could not absolve themselves from the blame. Zhou Xiaoduo found that his current situation seemed to be a little tragic. Ever since he started reading fortunes at the entrance of the school, it was probably on the 3rd day that the refreshing feeling came one after another. Although the points given for reading a person were not many, at most half a drop, 1/3 of a drop, 1/10 of a drop, it was still extraordinary. But there were so many people and the base number was amazing. At least 1 point of cooling power could be earned in a day. With the continuous arrival of the cooling power, his dantian naturally continued to expand, and so did his meridians. For a time, no matter how hard he cultivated and absorbed a lot of Astral Soul's jade, he did not have the restless feeling of breaking through the suppression for a long time. Although his luck points had increased and money kept coming in, the feeling of his cultivation never being able to fill it up made Zhou Xiaoduo anxious. No, it was only a few days before Nian Cat's breakthrough. What if he could not break through the current barrier before then? The first thing Qin Fengyang did when he returned to school was to ask Zhou Xiaoduo, "How's the situation these few days?" Zhou Xiaoduo's head drooped. "No progress for now." "How many times?" "It was fine in the first few days, but in the last 4 or 5 days it hasn't happened even once." "Not even once?" Qin Fengyang nodded, his face showing a hint of anger. With a bang, Zhou Xiaoduo turned into a rolling gourd. "Not even once? What have you been doing these days? Don't you know that the path of cultivation is like sailing against the current? If you don't advance, you'll fall behind?" What Mr. Qin said was the truth. Cultivators were most afraid of slacking off. Once they slacked off, they would not be able to adjust and consolidate their current state. Stagnation and even regression were common cases. A week before his accident, Zhou Xiaoduo had worked so hard to suppress it. Now that a week had passed, he didn't feel anything. Of course, he wasn't working hard. What other explanation could there be? Qin Fengyang didn't care about Zhou Xiaoduo's explanation. He put down the north and south beating things and beat him up. "I'm telling you, if you're overtaken by Wanli Xiu and Long Yusheng, I'll wait for the day you call them Brother Long and Sister Xiu." Qin Fengyang said fiercely, "From tomorrow onwards, your basic weight will be doubled. Every day, you'll have to carry 2,500 kilograms to and from class. When you're reading fortunes, you'll have to carry 2,500 kilograms on your back. Your left leg in the morning, your right leg in the afternoon, and your shoes in the afternoon." Zhou Xiaoduo lowered his head submissively and agreed one by one like a bullied little wife. His cultivation progress wasn't fast, and his words weren't firm either. Well, there was one more important thing that had come to an end. Zhou Xiaonian and Zhou Xiaoduo's swords were all finished. Especially Zhou Xiaonian. Not only the sword, but the scabbard was also completed. Zhou Xiaonian loved the Sword of Hope so much that she couldn't put it down. It wasn't an exaggeration at all. The sword was pure white and crystal clear. At first glance, it didn't look like a murder weapon at all. Instead, it looked more like a work of art. The scabbard was grayish-white and looked extremely inconspicuous. However, as long as one held it in their hands, they could feel a cold spiritual energy flowing into their hands, constantly nourishing their cultivation and soul. The design of the scabbard was a phoenix spreading its wings. The wings on both sides were connected to form a sword guard. The phoenix wings weren't very eye-catching, but on one side, there was a cute puppy hugging the phoenix wings with its two little paws. It raised its head and stuck out its little tongue, looking charmingly naive. Actually, my favorite part of this sword are these two puppies. They're so cute. I like them so much. Ha ha ha. Zhuoxiaonian loved the sword so much that she couldn't put it down. Zhuoxiaoduo, on the other hand, rolled his eyes wildly and didn't care about it at all. Moreover, Zhuoxiaoduo's sword could only be described in one word: thin. Then it was light. The whole sword was no different from a piece of paper. Even the scabbard was twice as thin as an ordinary scabbard. The main material of this sword is true gold above clouds. It's 3 feet long and weighs 434 grams. In terms of sharpness, it can be called the best sword in the world. This was Wu Tiejiang's evaluation of the sword. The best sword in the world. When Zhuochanglu brought the two swords home, Zhuoxiaonian and Zhuoxiaoduo almost went crazy when they saw them. These are the swords for both of you. Give each of them a name you like. Zhuochanglu said with a smile. Okay, does it sound bad to call my sword Doggy's sword? Zhuoxiaonian frowned and couldn't quite make up her mind. Zhuoxiaoduo sighed. It definitely doesn't sound good, right? A girl's sword is called Doggy's sword? What are you thinking? There's something wrong with your brain. Zhuoxiaonian racked her brains. Doggy's sword? Doggy's sword? Doggy's sword? Doggy's sword. No. Wu Yuding said from the side. How about Spirit Snatcher's sword? It has the homonym of Xiaoduo's name, and the spirit of the goddess of spiritual thoughts. I think it's pretty good. Spirit Snatcher's spirit, and the names of the two are combined. Spirit Snatcher's sword? Spirit Snatcher's sword? Zhuoxiaonian's eyes lit up as she read. Good name, good name. Thank you, Mom. Thus, the name of the sword was decided. Spirit Snatcher's sword. At the moment of naming the sword, Zhuoxiaonian gently cut her wrist with the sword edge. Blood immediately gushed out and slowly poured into the sword. A ray of blood flowed on the sword for a moment. Suddenly, smoke rose and disappeared. On the sword, there were 2 more words faintly. Spirit Snatcher. The divine sword recognized its master. After recognizing its master, the dazzling light overflowing from the sword began to slowly disappear. In the end, it disappeared completely. Then what should I call my sword? Zhuoxiaoduo said. This sword is light and thin, exquisite, sharp and beautiful. It's very uncomfortable to be hit by it. It's either bleeding or losing your life. It's very dangerous. It's dangerous and elegant. Just like an elegant cat. Zhuoxiaoduo said, why don't I call my sword the cat sword? Zhuoxiaoduo said proudly, the spirit of the goddess of spiritual thoughts and the cat of the cat. How nice. Zhuoxiaonian was furious. Zhuoxiaoduo. You. But it was too late. The moment Zhuoxiaoduo finished speaking, he immediately cut his wrist. Blood gushed out. Then 2 small words appeared on the sword. Cat sword. Zhuoxiaonian was so angry that her lungs were about to explode. Let's go. I'll bring you out to practice. Zhuoxiaonian dragged Zhuoxiaoduo out for the entire night. Zhuoxiaoduo was almost beaten into a sack by Zhuoxiaonian. However, the name Spirit Cat Sword was an unchangeable fact. Regarding this, Zhuoxiaoduo expressed that he was willing to be drilled. During this period of time, the number of meetings at Meng's headquarters increased. Too many things have happened in the past 8 days. Meng Qintian's face was extremely gloomy. His previous handsome and elegant demeanor was almost gone. On the second day, the warehouse in the Jing City branch caught on fire. All the goods were destroyed. On the same night, the 40 carts of goods that the Kaizhou branch was transporting to the city were attacked by star beasts. None of the elites that accompanied them survived. On the third day, the general manager of the Yuzhou branch had a stroke and died. The finance manager and a few accountants ran away with the money. They were ambushed on the way and died. However, they could not recover the money that they lost. On the fourth day, 7 branches were attacked at the same time. They were either killed, caught on fire, or met with thieves. One of the branches was sealed by the government. They were not allowed to open their doors. All the goods inside were confiscated. On the 5th day, 2 film companies under the Meng's umbrella were attacked. They were involved in tax evasion. They were shut down and their accounts were frozen. The most infuriating thing was that one of the directors of the film company was arrested and killed a tax official. This caused a huge uproar. Their artists were exposed to gambling. All their film projects were stopped and all the dramas that had been released were banned. On the 6th day, on the 7th day, just today, just now, we received news that the 400,000 tons of snowflake cotton stored in the Tianzhou branch had spontaneously combusted. It caused a huge fire in half of the surrounding city. Meng Qiantian looked at the report and said softly, in the past 8 days, just the monetary loss alone is more than 50 billion. And that's not even taking into account the consequences. These things happen one after another. There must be something fishy going on. Meng Tianyue frowned and said, any one of these incidents is something that has never happened in the history of the Meng's organization. Now that everything has happened in the past 8 days, it is not something that can be described as fishy. There must be a huge reason behind it. As they were talking, the phone on the table rang. Chapter 221. Meng Tianyue was stunned. For the past few days, she had been receiving calls from him and nothing good had happened. This had caused her to develop a phobia towards the phone. Pick it up. I don't think it's anything good. Meng Qiantian sighed. Meng Tianyue picked it up. Boss Meng, just now, the 17th young master had a heart attack. The voice from the other side of the phone made Meng Tianyue's heart twitch. Before the other side could finish, she said, I know, you guys deal with it. Putting down the phone, Meng Tianyue's expression was strange. The 17th young master died of a heart attack in Azhou. Meng Qiantian's eyes were gloomy, and the elegance he once had was gone. The deceased mentioned on the phone was Meng Tianyue's 17th son. Although his cultivation talent was not good, he was quite talented in business. He was in charge of the business for the Meng Corporation and could be called a capable person, an elite in the business world. Now he was gone just like that. On the other side, Ning Suifeng, who had been standing in front of the window and looking out in a trance, said with a bleak expression, if I say that your family is stronger than mine, will you and your father think that I'm gloating? Oh, as of today, 13 people of the Ning bloodline have died. The reasons are different, but there were no signs of it. There's also a village that was affected in the battle between Jiang Zhongbin and Shang Qingyun. All of them died and no one survived. Ning Suifeng sighed deeply. In just these few days, the Ning clan has received news of deaths one after another. The clan's business has been robbed, intercepted, set on fire and escaped. There is no lack of either. Just this morning, 2 pregnant women in the family had miscarriages. Ning Suifeng said, I think there must be a huge problem with the feng shui of the ancestral house. Previously, there must be some insidious means involved in the incident of Wuxia West. It's just that we can't see it. Meng Qiantian and Meng Tianyue nodded at the same time. Yes, we think so too. Now we have to discuss a solution. We can't continue like this. If it continues, our 2 families will be finished. Ning Suifeng's expression was solemn. Find another Qi watcher and investigate carefully. Meng Qiantian said. If it really doesn't work, we'll flatten both the east and west mountains. Ning Suifeng's face was gloomy. Even if we have to destroy Phoenix City's thousands of years of history, our 2 families can't just wait for death. As long as the feng shui layout on the outside is broken, the schemes inside will naturally vanish. Meng Qiantian flatly said, no, you can't. Ning Suifeng said angrily, now, both our clans are at the point of life and death. If we don't advance, we'll die. What else can't we do? Meng Qiantian said gloomily, who dares to break the feng shui of heaven and earth that has lasted for tens of thousands of years? Who dares to act recklessly? I dare. Ning Suifeng said. If you dare, then you are courting death. Meng Qiantian's eyes were cold. Whoever breaks it will die. His tone became heavier as he said word by word. Right now, whoever dares to touch Phoenix City's feng shui will be doomed eternally, much less completely. I've already warned you beforehand. If anything happens, don't blame me for not warning you beforehand. Meng Tianyue and Ning Suifeng both frowned. Chen Tian, now is a matter of life and death for both our clans. The entire Meng group, the entire Ning family. Ning Suifeng said gloomily. Are they not as important as Zhao's phoenix vein? Zhao's phoenix vein? Meng Chen sneered. What do you mean by Zhao's phoenix vein? This is a big move that has been gestating for tens of thousands of years. Compared to the phoenix vein, one or two of your clans are the ones who are insignificant and extremely shallow. One or two clans were insignificant compared to the phoenix vein. Meng Tianyue and Ning Suifeng were speechless for a long time. The two clans were related to the lives of hundreds of thousands of people. How was it extremely shallow? Was it really insignificant? Meng Tianyue's face was gloomy as she muttered, speaking of breaking this feng shui layout, there are ways to go about it. The other party changed the flow of the water because they want to protect the spiritual thought goddess and let the phoenix pulse succeed. In other words, as long as the spiritual thought goddess is killed, this layout will be broken. Meng Tianyue said coldly, with the strength of our two clans, killing the spiritual thought goddess is not a big deal. Meng Chen immediately objected. No. The two clan leaders turned their heads at the same time and blurted out in surprise. They could not move the feng shui layout, but they could not kill the spiritual thought goddess? How could they do that? Of course not. The spiritual thought goddess is the key figure in this Phoenix Pulse soul cleansing. She can't die. She must die, but she must die on the day of the Phoenix Pulse soul cleansing. We can only kill her when the Phoenix Pulse soul cleansing happens. If we act in advance, the Phoenix Pulse soul cleansing will go into hibernation with the death of the spiritual thought goddess. We can't take this risk no matter what. Meng Chen said sternly, we've been planning for decades just for this day. Who dares to kill the spiritual thought goddess before the Phoenix Pulse soul cleansing happens? Ning Suifeng said coldly, but I don't care about these decades of planning. The current crisis of the Ning clan is the most important thing. It's something I have to face. Clan leader Ning wants to try? Meng Chen stood up slowly and looked at Ning Suifeng like a viper. Ning Suifeng's face showed anger, and he glared at Meng Chen. Meng Tianyue hurriedly interrupted and said, the two clans are facing a crisis together. We should work together and help each other. Why do we have to fight against each other? Let's think of other ways to deal with the crisis. Isn't there a rumor recently that Wuxia Duo has been telling fortunes at the gate of second middle school every day? And the response is extremely enthusiastic. This kid was just an ordinary person before. How did he suddenly become so proficient in this field? Could it be that he was the one who set up this layout? Other than him, I can't think of anyone else. If Yuanyue wanted to destroy it, she could have done it decades ago. There's no need to wait until today. Meng Chen said gloomily, maybe we have always underestimated this little guy. I didn't expect this little guy to be the biggest troublemaker in this game. Ning Suifeng grinned and said, we can't kill the spiritual thought goddess, but can't we kill Wuxia Duo? Meng Chen sneered and said, kills Wuxia Duo? Now everything is almost clear. The defeat of our two clans is most likely set up by Wuxia Duo. And other than him, no one else will know more about this game. If you kill him, who will be the one to break this trap? Ning Suifeng was furious. We can't kill the spiritual thought goddess, Wuxia Duo and feng shui can't be broken. Are we just going to wait for death? Tomorrow morning, Meng Chen said lightly, I'll go and find Wuxia Duo to test it out. And that little girl from the Bai clan, ask her to give up. Even if her clan gets the benefits for free, we can't do anything for the time being. Previously we wanted to kill Wuxia Duo so we could do it. But now Wuxia Duo can't die for the time being. Give up. Immediately. His sharp eyes flashed past Meng Tianyue and Ning Suifeng. I've already explained the pros and cons. The two of you please don't act rashly. Otherwise the consequences will be worse. I've already said this. Meng Tianyue's face darkened, but she didn't say anything. Ning Suifeng grunted coldly before flicking his sleeve and leaving. Meng Chen eyes were extremely gloomy as he looked at Ning Suifeng's back. The hostility in his eyes could no longer be controlled. Chenan, Meng Tianyue said softly, can you think of a way to protect the Meng clan? Meng Chen nodded slowly and said, protecting the Meng clan is a must. But you must remember, no matter what, you can't do anything to the spiritual thought goddess. I know. Swichonglu opened the door as usual in the early morning. Not long after, Blind Hong came. Old Zwa, is the child here? Blind Hong's voice sounded unusually panicked. Swichonglu looked back and couldn't help but be shocked. Old Hong, what happened to you? Blind Hong's whole body was in a shriveled state. More than half of the hair on his head had fallen off. Even the exposed part of his scalp was covered with lifeless age spots. He looked as if he was going to close his eyes and die in the next moment. Swichonglu was completely dumbfounded at this moment. What the fuck? Did I give him a life-prolonging pill or poison to take his life? He had clearly eaten a priceless life-continuing pill not long ago. Although the effects of the pill had been greatly reduced and he had even lost a portion of it, it was still not a problem for him to live for a few more decades. But now, why did he look so much older than when he had not taken the pill? What the fuck? Don't mention it, this is fate. Blind Hong's face was haggard. He looked very depressed and said, Heaven's way of reincarnation, my retribution has come. Retribution? Swichonglu was a little puzzled. When I first came to Phoenix City, I was already being watched. Then he offered me a huge sum of money to let me see the trend of Phoenix City's earth veins. He said that I must find something, because he felt that there was a big secret hidden in Phoenix City. Back then, on one hand, I was forced by the other party's force. On the other hand, because of the 3 words big secret, my curiosity was aroused. After looking around, I found that there was actually a hidden phoenix vein in this place. And it was a phoenix vein that was about to be born. At that time, after I confirmed this result, I was quite frightened. This was the arrangement of Heaven's way, and it was related to the fate of this world. I was just a chi diviner. Wouldn't I be offending Heaven's power if I took a peek? But I had already received a huge sum of money from the other party and formed karma. Moreover, there was a threat to my life. How could I not say it? How could I not say it? So I said it. At that time, I was still thinking that with the heavenly fate vitality replenishing technique that I cultivated, even if I lost some of my lifespan this time, I would be able to recover it. Chapter 222. But in the end, I underestimated the backlash of angering the heavenly might. When I told the whole story, the backlash of the heavenly way descended. Not only did it extract half of my lifespan, but it also directly crippled my heavenly fate energy supplement technique. Even 70 to 80% of my Taoist foundation was destroyed. Blind Hong sighed with melancholy. From then on, I already knew that I had revealed too much of the heavenly way this time. I had greatly angered the heavenly way. And more than 20 years ago, I looked at the feng shui for the Meng family and the Ning family. The original intention of these 2 families was to welcome the birth of the phoenix soul. However, the moment the phoenix soul appeared in the world was the moment I was completely punished for participating in the scheme against the phoenix soul. Naturally, I didn't want to see it. But when I thought of the fury of the heavenly way and the power of the backlash of the heavenly way, it still made me feel lingering fear. However, it also aroused my rebellious heart. Since I was destined to rebel, I thought that if I did the opposite, I might be able to have a happy ending. But I didn't expect that after I saw it, both my eyes were blinded. But under my guidance, the feng shui of the Ning family and the Meng family had already taken shape and embarked on the path of leading the phoenix to extinguish the wind. But recently, I don't know who not only saw through my layout, but also used the foundation of the feng shui that I had set up to take advantage of the situation. He went against death and came back to life. He completely reversed the foundation of the array. Blind Hong pursed his lips and sighed. The person who reversed the layout has a clever mind. The size of the layout, the viciousness of his thinking, the secrecy of the layout, and the ruthlessness of his actions. I have never seen anything like this in my life. We are all people who set up the layout. My layout was broken by him, and what he broke was a layout that went against the heavenly way. As the person who set up the layout, I naturally bear the brunt of the backlash. Blind Hong sighed. This is all fate. Old Zwa. This is probably the so-called, the will of the heavenly way cannot be defied. It's true. You changed the things that the heavenly way had set up. It said that man can conquer the heavenly way. But no matter how much time has passed, he can still twist it back to its original path. And the time, the experience, the fate that was reversed will all turn into a backlash. Blind Hong's expression was bleak. In these short 7 to 8 days, I can feel that my life is rapidly being sucked away. Tears appeared in Blind's eyes. I don't even dare to sleep now. Old Zwa, can you imagine? When I wake up from my sleep, I'll lose at least 10 years of my life. Zwa Chonglu's mouth twitched. A few days ago, Zwa Xiaoduo and Zwa Xiaonian had been talking about changing their fates at home. They had asked Mu Yinyan and the others to help them. Although Zwa Chonglu only knew the general idea, he knew the reason behind it. He had painstakingly begged for the life-continuing pill and gave it to the blind man, hoping that it would increase his lifespan by 100 years. In the end, his son only used 7 or 8 days to suck away all of the lifespan that the blind man had painstakingly increased, and even more. For a moment, Zwa Chonglu couldn't help but recall what Blind Hong had said earlier. Heaven's will cannot be defied. Could it be that heaven's will really cannot be defied? No matter how hard one tried, there would always be other accidents that would disrupt one's well-planned plans, erase all of one's efforts, and return everything to its original path? How are you now? Zwa Chonglu felt that he didn't know how to speak anymore. Now. Blind Hong laughed bitterly and said, my lifespan is really running out this time. And the backlash this time is so severe that I have never seen it before. In this lifetime I have become a Qi diviner and come to Phoenix City to observe the Feng Shui. This is definitely the biggest mistake I have ever made in my life. And the most unlucky thing of all. Heavens will reincarnate. Today it's my turn. It's not that I don't want to take revenge, it's just that it's not the time yet. This Phoenix City's Feng Shui was originally following the will of the heavens, but I forcefully changed it to defy the will of the heavens. Later on, it was reversed by someone else. The cause and effect of this is something that I cannot bear alone. Too much for me to bear? What does that mean? It means that this karma will fall upon my reincarnation. Blind Hong stomped his feet and sighed. I will have to bear this backlash for the rest of my life, and I don't know when it will end. At the very least, I will have to bear it until a long time after the heavenly Tao is formed. Upon hearing this, Zwa Chonglu's eyes lit up. This? What do you mean? I don't know the specifics. The only thing I can be sure of is that this time, the backlash from the primordial soul and the true spirit linking karma is destined to happen, and it can't be avoided. Blind Hong wanted to cry but had no tears. Although I don't know what my next life will be, I can tell you now. In my next life I will have to repay the debt of this life. Until I have done so. What do you think this is? Zwa Chonglu didn't understand. Then why did you come to see my son? Blind Hong grabbed Zwa Zhonglu's hand and said softly, Brother Zwa, you've helped me a lot in this life. You've taken care of me a lot. If it weren't for the beneficial spiritual tea you gave me that day and replenished my lifespan, I would have died a long time ago. However, I, Blind Hong, haven't given you anything in return. How can I be so thick-skinned as to say that you're my brother? The only thing I can do is to look into the future for your descendant. With my spirit as a guide, I can look into his future. This is also the last thing I can do for you in this life. If I die with so much debt, I, Blind Hong, will not die in peace. Zwa Chonglu sighed softly. At this moment, thousands of thoughts flashed through his mind. Suddenly, he made up his mind and made an important decision. Blind, how much longer do you have? Not much longer. Blind Hong said sadly, I, Blind Hong, am all alone in this life. I intend to deceive the heavens and steal from the world. It is only natural that I will be punished by the heavens. I have no complaints and I have nothing to worry about. The only thing I care about is your brother, Old Zwa. All alone in this life. All alone in this life. Zwa Chonglu murmured. Then he said, have a sip of tea here and rest your mind. I will call that little guy to come. He will let Brother Hong fulfill your last wish and pass away in peace. He grabbed Blind Hong's hand. Brother, you and I have been friends all our lives. You don't owe me anything and I don't owe you anything. You must remember. I am only here because your surname is Hong. You are Blind Hong. And you are here because my surname is Zwa. We are like-minded. There is nothing else. Like-minded. Blind Hong choked with sobs. Thank you. Zwa Chonglu took out his phone and called Zwa Xiaoduo. Duo was about to enter the gravity room when he received the call. It was common for Mother Zhua and Zhua Xiaonian to call him. However, it was extremely rare for Father Zhua to call him. He did not know what had happened, so he rushed over in a hurry. It did not take him more than a few minutes to step into Zhua Chonglu's Astral Soul Stone shop. "Father, why did you call me over in such a hurry?" Zhua Duo thought it was something big, but when he came over to take a look, he saw Zhua Zhonglu sitting leisurely with Blind Hong and drinking tea. He couldn't help but feel surprised. What was going on? "This is your Uncle Hong. You have met him before. However, we were in a hurry last time and did not have the time to formally introduce you. This time I will make up for it." Zhua Chonglu said solemnly, "Your Uncle Hong is the #1 Qi Watcher in Phoenix City. At the same time, he is also the #1 Qi Watcher in the Central Plains. He called you here because he wants to read your fate." Oh, Zhua Duo did not know what was going on. He hurriedly bowed. "Hello, Uncle Hong." Good. Blind Hong smiled kindly. "You are Zhua Duo? Good child. Child, come here. Sit here and don't move." Blind Hong placed a small stool 3 feet in front of him. Okay. At this moment, Blind Hong completely closed his 2 blind eyes. His entire body was like a piece of rotten wood. There was no sign of life in him at all. However, just when Zhua Duo could not sit still anymore, a green light suddenly flashed from Blind Hong's forehead on his wrinkled face. After a while, the green light formed an illusory object that looked like an eye on his forehead. As far as the eye could see, it was more like an eye formed by a cloud of fog. Blind Hong's voice sounded faintly. "Old Zhua, this is the last step of my True Spirit Aura Observation technique. It has never been activated or used before. True Spirit Aura Observation Technique. All Qi Watchers who cultivate the True Spirit Aura Observation Technique only have one chance to use it in their lives. From now on, you must remember every word that I say." Zhua Chonglu's expression became serious. The hazy eye formed by the fog suddenly opened and looked at Zhua Xiaoduo's face. The moment he looked at it, Blind Hong's face was full of shock and astonishment. In his illusory eye, he clearly saw a cloud of green qi and a cloud of purple qi intertwining with each other and rushing straight toward the 9 heavens imperial court. Dragons hide and phoenixes soar in a corner, wind and cloud soar together in one night. With a flip of my hand, I picked up the tears of 1,000 souls and stepped out of the white bone peak. Seeking Tao, the mortal world has no master, but once the phoenix cries, the central plains will turn red. Torrential waves of blood connect the land, and ghosts will shock heaven and earth for thousands of miles. Heterodox demons walk the path of wind and clouds, and drink green blood toward the sky, sweeping away all the obstacles in front and hammering the central plains and eastern pass. Fangyang's purple soul soars into the sky, and his eyes are filled with murderous intent. At the intersection of firmness and softness, true emotions and true nature, not believing in the yin and yang of the human world, he coldly looks at the mortal world and breaks through the northern underworld. A thought always stays in his heart, and 2 feelings depend on each other in the 9 heavens. Never. Believing that the heavens have a master, he hammered the sun and moon towards the east. Monstrous waves of blood rise with one hand, and bones are everywhere. 1 foot is empty, this life is endless. Blind Hong's expression became more and more serious, surprised and shocked. However, every word that came out of his mouth was still clear and calm. However, just as he said the words "this life is endless," he suddenly gurgled in his throat and his eyes bulged out in anger. Begging for monthly votes. Begging for subscriptions. Begging for recommendation votes. Brothers, help Heterodox. Chapter 223. Blind Hong's old face flushed red. Then the eyes formed by the smoke suddenly disappeared without a trace. With a puff, Blind Hong spat out a big mouthful of blood. His entire body fell from the sky. He was still unconscious. His whole body was twitching non-stop. Gurgling sounds came from his throat. He couldn't catch his breath and was about to die. Zhua Zhonglu reacted quickly and supported Blind Hong's body. Then he threw an elixir into Blind Hong's mouth. After that, he brought over the 3,000-year-old ginseng tea that he had brewed earlier. Then, he poured the tea directly into Blind Hong's mouth. Then he started to push Blind Hong's blood. "Come and help me too." Zhuchanglu was obviously afraid that he wouldn't be able to activate the blood vessels with his own strength. He hurriedly called out to Zhuxiaoduo. Oh, okay. Zhuxiaoduo was also anxious. This old blind man, he just read my fortune. Why is he going to die? Does that mean I'm the one who caused his death? What the hell, this was simply a black pot that fell from the sky. The father and son were busy for a full 15 minutes before Blind Hong finally woke up. However, he was already on the verge of death. He looked like he was on the verge of death. He smacked his lips and laughed bitterly. Old Zhua, you've wasted good things for me again. It's useless. Today is the day I die. Zhuchanglu let out a long sigh. Old Hong, hang in there. I can't hang in there anymore. Blind Hong smiled weakly and said, under the effect of the true soul aura examination technique, I don't know anything. You just have to remember everything I said just now. Do you remember everything? Got it, got it. Zhuchanglu nodded deeply. Blind Hong nodded and smiled comfortingly. Then he said helplessly, Old Zhua, it seems that I still have to trouble you for my funeral. But there's no need to go through so much trouble. I don't have any children, nor do I have any ancestral graves. You can just wrap my stinky skin up and find a coffin to bury me. I've already thought of a grave. It's that. Zhuchanglu held Blind Hong's hand and said, Brother Hong, you have no children. It's your business that you don't have an ancestral grave. We're brothers. I, Zhuanglu, can't let you go on your last journey in a miserable state. Blind Hong smiled bitterly. This is heaven's will. Zhuanglu thought for a while and said, Blind man, since you are willing to risk your life to see the fate of my son, then this brat owes you a life. He thought carefully. He paced a few steps and looked up at the sky. Complicated emotions flashed in his eyes. Suddenly, he gritted his teeth and said decisively, I'll let Xiaoduo send you off and open the gate of Yin-Yang for you. Blind Hong's body suddenly shook. His face showed extreme surprise and surprise. Then he shook his head slowly. Old Zhua, why do you have to do this? Why do you have to let the child have another karma? Zhuchanglu said firmly, this is what I should do. Then he said, Xiaoduo, kneel down. Kowtow to your godfather. Xiaoduo was stunned when he heard this order. I have a godfather now? And a godfather who is about to die. But he didn't dare to disobey his father. He knelt down obediently and kowtowed a few times. He called, Godfather. Blind Hong was emotional. Hot tears gushed out of his dry eyes. Good boy. Good boy. It's just that you've been wronged. Just that. He said with a trembling voice, Old Zhua, I didn't give the child a greeting gift. I feel guilty. Zhuchanglu said, rest well. There's no need to talk about a greeting gift. Blind Hong smiled contentedly and said weakly, I, Blind Hong, have been lonely all my life. I have no one to rely on. I have no children. I didn't expect that before I die, I would have a godson with a bright future. Old Zhua, I'm grateful to you. He coughed a few times and said, the books I stored with you before, and my natal ring. I'll give them to Xiaoduo. Xiaoduo, I don't have much ability, and I don't have any legacy to leave you. You also know about qi observation. But, don't learn my real spiritual qi observation technique. My natal ring. Ever since the foundation of my cultivation was destroyed and my divine sense was crippled, I couldn't even open it myself. There are some small things in there. There are many cultivation techniques, sword techniques, blade techniques, hammer techniques. It's just a pity that I'm too useless. Ever since my cultivation was crippled, I couldn't practice anything. When he said this, his eyes suddenly popped out, and he finally spat out a mouthful of blood. While he was struggling, Blind Hong suddenly straightened up. He pointed at the sky and said sternly, in my next life, I'll go against your heaven. After he said this, he fell to the ground with his back facing the sky. Mouthfuls of blood kept spurting out. However, he was no longer breathing. Blind Hong died just like that. Looking at Blind Hong's corpse, Zhuchanglu's eyes were deep. He sighed softly. After a very, very long time, he stretched out his hand and gently closed Blind Hong's eyelids. He muttered, Brother Hong, you and I have known each other for a long time. In the heavens and on the earth, in this life and in the next. Now that I am leaving, I will be extremely lonely. He turned his head and looked at Swishaoduo. He said, I'll contact the morning hall for everything. Tomorrow we'll send your godfather off. Swishaoduo was puzzled. He said, Daddy, this is your godfather. Swichonglu's eyes narrowed. He said softly, Son, you must remember your godfather. Swishaoduo nodded his head in confusion. He didn't understand the meaning behind Swichonglu's words at all. Swichonglu covered Blind Hong's corpse with a piece of white cloth. At this moment, a dark ring on Blind Hong's finger suddenly lit up. Then it became somewhat illusory. It seemed that this ring was going to disappear along with Blind Hong's life. However, this illusory state only lasted for a moment before it stopped. Then it slowly floated down from Blind Hong's finger and stopped in midair. It flickered on and off again. It seemed that it could disappear at any time. Swichonglu reached out his hand to grab it, but he grabbed nothing. It seemed that the ring didn't exist. Swichonglu looked extremely surprised. He paused for a moment before saying, Xiaoduo, I can't touch this ring. It's probably the ring that your godfather left for you. Try to take it and put it on your finger. Oh. Swishaoduo reached out his hand and grabbed the ring. Somehow, the ring that Swichonglu couldn't grab with his hand solidified as soon as Swishaoduo reached out his hand. It fell into Swishaoduo's palm. It was cold to the touch. Which finger should I wear? Swishaoduo held the ring in one hand and looked at his finger. I can't wear the index finger, right? The ring finger isn't used for this. Then, the pinky? Swishaoduo murmured. Swichonglu rolled his eyes. It's up to you. Swishaoduo casually put the ring on his pinky. The moment the ring was put on Swishaoduo's pinky, the ring suddenly began to tighten slowly and firmly around Swishaoduo's pinky. Then Swishaoduo felt a pain in his finger. It was as if there were a few thorns sticking out of the ring and piercing deep into the flesh of Swishaoduo's pinky. He trembled in pain. Blood instantly seeped out and flowed into the ring, dyeing the entire ring red. After a while, the color of the ring that had turned completely red slowly faded and turned into an ordinary grayish-white ring. Then, even the grayish-white ring disappeared. The father and son looked at each other. Swishaoduo's pinky was empty. It's gone. Swishaoduo's eyes widened. Don't be surprised. Try to think about that ring. Swichonglu's face returned to calmness, but there was a hint of surprise in his tone. Swishaoduo thought for a while and kept muttering, ring ring. The grayish-white ring appeared and quietly appeared on his finger. Wow, that's amazing. This time Swishaoduo was completely shocked. In the future, if you want to use the things inside, you don't need to make the ring appear. Just communicate with your mind. Swichonglu was very happy. He couldn't help but sigh. I never thought. This ring is actually a life ring. Life? What does a life ring mean? Swishaoduo asked. Well, when you have more experience in the future, you will naturally know. Swichonglu obviously didn't want to explain more. Instead, he patted Swishaoduo's shoulder excitedly. You just need to know that you have made a fortune this time. Made a fortune? Swishaoduo was suspicious. Just this ring? What do you know? You don't know. Swichonglu couldn't help but sigh. He didn't know if he should say that fortune favors fools. Anyway, he never thought that Blind Hong would leave this ring to Swishaoduo. It was no wonder that before Blind Hong died, he had emphasized, natal. Swishaoduo was thinking about opening the ring to see what was inside and how he had made a fortune. However, he realized that he couldn't open this inconspicuous ring. Dad, I can't open this ring either. You haven't even condensed your mind and you want to open this ring? What kind of dream are you having? Swichonglu said, This is a spiritual ring. You can't open it in such a short time. Oh. Swishaoduo didn't quite understand. At this moment, the door curtain was lifted. Wu Taizhong walked in and saw Blind Hong's corpse covered with a white cloth. His burly body trembled. Brother Zwa. Isn't this Hong? It's him. Swichonglu sighed sadly. He's gone. Hearing the bad news, Wu Taizhong felt as if the sky and earth were spinning. His eyes were filled with stars as he gasped for air. Finally, he couldn't help but curse. How could this old bastard die so early? Swichonglu's eyes were unprecedentedly stern as he stared at blacksmith Wu. Wu Taizhong sat down, his face full of confusion. I saw him just now. Moreover, how could he die just like that? And he died here? Wu Taijiang simply couldn't understand. He pulled his hair and said, damn, this is too sudden, isn't it? I saw a dead man the moment I came in, and it was him. This is really fucking. Chapter 224. Zhuanglu couldn't express his bitterness. He couldn't possibly say that they had already succeeded in prolonging Blind Hong's life, but he met his son, who set up a trap and broke Blind Hong's trap, causing Blind Hong to suffer a backlash and leave in advance. He couldn't say that, okay? The implications were even greater. However, the process of this matter was so complicated that it was extremely strange. Especially when it came so suddenly, they were completely unprepared and were completely caught off guard. You go to school first, Shuanglu said to Zhou Xiaoduo. Don't forget to come and send your godfather off tomorrow. Okay, I know. Zhou Xiaoduo left. Hearing this, Wu Tiejiang's entire body stiffened. Even after Zhou Xiaoduo had left, he was still standing there stiffly. His mouth was wide open and his eyes were dull. His eyeballs were hanging out of their sockets. What's wrong? Zhuanglu frowned. Who are you trying to impress by showing such an idiotic behavior? Godfather. Godfather? Wu Tiejiang's expression was as if he had eaten feces. Godfather, what's going on? Don't call me Godfather. Zhuanglu rolled his eyes. You mean you let Xiaoduo become Blind Hong's godfather? Wu Tiejiang's tone was full of disbelief. Why, do you have a problem with that? I don't have a problem with that. After all, this is your business. But this, I feel weird. Wu Taijiang said. I can't be sure if I don't ask more. Zhuanglu said indifferently. I naturally have my own considerations. He said meaningfully. The most important thing right now is to bury this lord in peace. That's how it should be. Wu Taijiang stepped forward and bowed. He muttered, speaking of this Blind Hong, he's still worthy of my bow. However, your schemes are too deep. I know I can't understand it and I don't want to know. In the future, don't let me hear or see you. I'm just a blacksmith, okay? Zhuanglu snorted. Do you think I want you to hear that? Want you to see? Wasn't it because you were so curious that you came in directly? Who let you in? Is it me? Is it Xiaoduo? Wu Taijiang scratched his head. You may leave. Zhuanglu said bleakly. I still want to talk to the blind man. Wu Taijiang looked at Zhuanglu's bleak face and said worriedly, Brothers Wu, it's not my place to say this, but you're both rivals. Everything that's happening now is just a coincidence. Don't get yourself involved and let your heart be clouded. Zhuanglu sighed softly, waved his hand, and said in disappointment, For a lifetime, for a lifetime. Wu Taijiang sighed and left obediently. Wait. Suddenly, he was stopped by Zhuanglu. What's the matter? This guy. If I remember correctly, his natal weapon was a hammer technique? Zhuanglu's eyes were shining. He was also shocked. Yes, he used 2 hammers to smash the sky red. The Thousand Souls Nightmare Hammer was the nightmare of almost the entire astral souls. Have you forgotten? Wu Taijiang looked at Zhuanglu in surprise. Suddenly he came back to his senses and jumped up with a bang sound. He let out a strange cry. Hammer technique? Zhuanglu's mouth twitched. Wu Tiejiang's mouth also twitched. They looked at each other and saw the strange expression on each other's face. Is this God's will? Zhuanglu remembered that Zhou Xiaoduo had been aiming for the hammer from the beginning. When he thought of this, he couldn't help but feel his scalp go numb. Wu Taijiang felt his lips and throat dry. He licked his lips and said dryly, He left the hammer technique? Zhuanglu nodded slowly. I think so. Wu Taijiang was dumbfounded. He thought of the 2 hammers that were destined to be earth-shattering in the future. Then, he thought of Zhou Xiaoduo becoming Blind Hong's godfather. Then, he thought of the hammer technique. He couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine. Zhuanglu seemed to be in a bit of a daze as he asked, Did you experience his hammer back then? Brothers Wu, you really think highly of me. Wu Taijiang pursed his lips and said, If I had experienced his hammers before, would I still be here forging for you? Taijiang, Zhuanglu said thoughtfully, You really have to do it again. Fuck. What for? Wu Tiezheng's face turned green. Why did he have to do it again? Hammer technique. Suochonglu frowned and said, I'm not good at using hammers. I hate it. Therefore I don't have the hammer technique. However, Xiao Duo can't practice without it. Isn't the hammer technique ready-made? Wu Taizhong pointed at Blind Hong's corpse. That's recognized as the best hammer technique in the world. Use your poor brain and think about it. Can this hammer technique be exposed? Suochonglu said angrily, once it's exposed, Xiao Duo's enemy will be the whole world. In the entire astral souls, which family's ancestors haven't been smashed to death by this bastard? Wu Taizhong came to a realization. That's a problem. Therefore, Xiao Duo's hammer technique can't be limited to only this family. Moreover, his hammer technique is too vicious. Since ancient times, those who fought with him were all smashed into ashes. His sin of killing is too great. Suochonglu pondered and said, pick out some hammer techniques that I like. 7 or 8 will do. 7 or 8. Wu Tiezheng's eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. Even his voice changed. 7 or 8 that you like. Just kill me. In the whole world, there are no more than 6 hammer techniques that you like, including the Thousand Souls Nightmare Hammer. You want 7 or 8. Do as you deem fit. Suochonglu played it down. Just send them to me when you receive them. If you don't contact me for the time being, use your hammer technique to practice first. Wu Taizhong jumped high. This is the storm hammer of 8 directions. Not a hammer. You dare to jump high in front of me? Suochonglu squinted his eyes. Wu Taizhong immediately bowed and smiled apologetically. Brother Zhua, you're so cool. Alright, you can leave now. Suochonglu reminded him. Only the heavens and the earth will know about this. Only you and I know. I understand, Brother Zhua. Wu Taizhong nodded repeatedly. Scram. I want to talk to old Hong. Okay. Wu Taizhong left. Suochonglu stood in front of Blind Hong's corpse with his hands clasped behind his back. He said softly, Blind old Hong, others might feel weird when they see me talking, but I know you won't. You can hear me. Actually, in this life I'm just Suochonglu and you're just Blind Hong. Maybe I know more than you and have some calculative heart. But after so many years of friendship, I believe you also know and can feel it. Our friendship isn't an illusion. I wanted to stop you and let you live for a few more years. Of course, it was partly due to my calculations, but more of it was because I hoped that my friend in this life could live for a few more days. But man proposes, God disposes. In the end, you passed away too early. Do you know that your passing has made me feel even more lonely? Now, even if I want to find someone to talk to, there's no one. If I want to find an opponent, there's no one left. Even if I want to scheme against someone, there's no one left. Blind Hong, you left too early too soon. My original intention was to stop you, but I didn't succeed. Instead, you kept me here unable to move. Old Hong, you should be proud. As for the final step, I'll let little Duo acknowledge you as his godfather. You can say that I've schemed against you once, or that I'm fulfilling your last wish, adding such a layer of karma to you. Old Hong, perhaps you'll be the one thanking me in the future. Brother, rest in peace. We'll be enemies in the next life. Suochonglu poured a glass of wine and gently poured it on the ground. His gaze was focused. In the next life, we'll be enemies again. After pouring a glass of wine, he picked it up and finished it in one gulp. When Meng Chentian arrived at second high, Suo Duo had stopped his fortune-telling and had entered the gravity room to make up for today's progress. After thinking for a while, Meng Chentian no longer hesitated. He immediately turned and drove in a new direction. I don't know if Blind Hong can come out of the mountain again. However, when he reached Blind Hong's house, it was General Tai who guarded the door. A rotten and decaying aura came from the room. Meng Chentian's heart sank. For a moment he was at a loss. He simply sat at the door and waited. After a long time, a handsome middle-aged man slowly appeared at the entrance of the alley and walked over. Seeing Meng Chentian at the door, he did not hesitate and continued to walk over. When he reached the door, he said in a gentle voice, Please make way, I'm going to get something. As soon as he finished speaking, he took out the key and opened the door to Blind Hong's room. You. Who are you? Meng Chentian was surprised. He had trained himself for many years before he had the self-cultivation and demeanor he had today. But this person didn't look very old. Yet, he had such a graceful demeanor. Everything about him was natural and unrestrained. Such a natural and unrestrained style. He could not compare to him in any aspect. My surname is Zhua. I'm Blind Hong's best friend. Zhua Chonglu looked at him indifferently and said, You're looking for Blind Hong? Yes. Yes, there is something. For some reason Meng Chuntian felt that he was stuttering in front of this middle-aged man. It was a little unnatural. He even felt a little uneasy, as if he could not let go of anything. It was extremely awkward. Well, you're late. Blind Hong is dead. Zhua Chonglu pushed the door. With a creak the door opened. He said indifferently, There's no one here who can help you. I'm here to find some of Blind Hong's belongings and bury them with him. Dead. Dead? At this moment Meng Chuntian felt that life was like a dream. The only person who could bypass Wuxiao Duo and Zhou Xiaonian to solve this problem was dead? How could he be so unlucky? The moment he thought of Wuxiao Duo and Zhou Xiaonian, Meng Chuntian suddenly quivered. He raised his head and said, Your surname is Wuxiao Duo? Zhou Chonglu nodded indifferently. Then, Wuxiao Duo and Zhou Xiaonian? Meng Chuntian asked hesitantly. Zhou Chonglu said indifferently, They are my son and daughter. Why, do you have something to say? Meng Chuntian said no. He did not know why, but when he faced Zhou Chonglu, the only feeling he had was uneasiness. Yes. Zhou Chonglu's voice was indifferent to a certain extent. Come on, since you're here, come in and do some work. Help me carry these things. These things are too heavy. 2 chapters for today, please vote. Chapter 225. Hearing Zhou Chonglu's greeting, Meng Chuntian walked over involuntarily. He helped Zhou Chonglu carry things and pack things up. He was so busy that he was covered in sweat. After packing everything up, he brought it to Zhou Chonglu and waited for him to choose. Zhou Chonglu looked at them one by one. Finally he picked a dozen or so items, all of which were small odds and ends. He wrapped them in a bundle and said, You look like a good kid. Help me move these things to the street corner. Hearing this praise, Meng Chuntian, who had always prided himself on being calm, suddenly felt unusually excited. He quickly agreed, okay. There was a kind of excitement that said, I can't believe I can be of use to you. It was a very glorious feeling. But as for the specific glory, there was nothing to say. He was speechless. He carried them all the way to the street corner and loaded them into the car. Zhou Chonglu got in the car and said, You can go back. Well, if there's nothing else, it's better to go back early. The person you're looking for is not here. Yes, I understand. Meng Chuntian repeatedly agreed. He respectfully watched the car leave. After a long time, he suddenly came to his senses and slapped himself in the face. Are you crazy? Meng Chuntian asked himself. With a gloomy face, he looked in the direction Zhou Chonglu left and muttered, It's not easy to have the opportunity to see Wuxiao Duo and Zhou Xiaonian's father alone. Not only did I not slap him to death, but I also worked for him for the whole afternoon. There was something strange about this matter. Meng Chuntian himself could not figure it out. I almost didn't think of Zhou Xiaonian just now. It can't be because I'm afraid of her, but because I want to leave a good impression on her father. Could it be that I was bewitched just now? But how could I be bewitched? This is really fucking. Meng Chuntian flew up and chased after him at high speed. At this moment, the ferocious flames in his heart surged to the heavens. He wholeheartedly wanted to slap this handsome middle-aged man with an outstanding bearing to death, and everything would be fine. Zhou Chonglu was driving at a traffic light intersection. Meng Chuntian landed in front of the car and strode to the driver's side, shouting, Get out. Zhou Chonglu rolled down the window and frowned. Kid, did you forget something? When he saw Meng Chuntian holding a compass in his hand, he patted his forehead and smiled. So you forgot the compass. How thoughtful of you. Oh, Meng Chuntian obediently handed over the compass with an expression of waiting for praise. Thank you for your hard work. Zhou Chonglu said faintly, It's getting late. Let's go back earlier. He stepped on the accelerator and drove away slowly. It was still so natural and casual, like it was at his fingertips. Meng Tian held his head and walked to the side of the road. He felt confused and absent-minded. After a while he woke up and murmured, "What's going on?" He slapped himself hard twice, but still did not understand why things turned out like this. When did I, Meng Tian, become so stupid? This should not be. What the hell was this? At this moment, Father Zhou had been gone for a long time. Meng Tian was still frowning and standing at the side of the street. He was puzzled and lost in thought. After a long time he was still confused. He scratched his head subconsciously and murmured, "Why am I standing at the corner of the street? What am I doing here?" He was puzzled and tried to recall for a long time. Finally he remembered. "Oh, I'm not here to ask Blind Hong for help." Oh! With a clear mind, he rushed all the way back to Blind Hong's house. He looked at the open door and then at the mess inside. He could not help but wonder, what's going on here? Why is it like this? The only memory he had of what happened was that someone seemed to ask him to go back early. But who said that? Why couldn't he remember? Go back early. Since Blind Hong was not here, he should go back early. There were still many things waiting for him at the company. Meng Tian got into the car and drove back to the Meng Corporation with full concentration. He got out, locked the car and went upstairs. "You're back? Did you find Zhuo Duo?" "Zhuo Duo?" Meng Tian was stunned and said, "No." "Then did you find Blind Hong?" "Blind Hong?" Meng Tian was stunned again and said, "No." He paused and said, "I'll look for Blind Hong tomorrow." Meng Tianyue was stunned. She sat up straight and stared at Meng Tian. She asked in a low voice, "What's wrong with you?" Meng Tian held his head and said tiredly, "Nothing. I just feel very tired and sleepy. I want to sleep." After saying that, he held his head and sat down on the sofa. He lay down and then he had really fallen into a deep sleep. Meng Tianyue's eyes widened. What? What was going on? What? What was going on? Did he see a ghost? On the other side, Ning Suifeng was sitting in his study. He frowned and was very annoyed. "Dad." A girl pushed open the door and walked in. "Have you seen the video on the internet?" "Video? What video?" "It's this. Dad, take a look." This video was accidentally taken at night. The person who took the video happened to pass by that road and saw the white fog rising. Felt like a ghost. Ning Qingqing's face was solemn. So this person took a picture of that scene and posted it on the internet. But when he realized that it was actually a picture of our Ning family's ancestral grave and wanted to delete it, it was already too late. It's all over the internet now. Everyone says that our ancestral grave has good feng shui. Other places don't have fog except our ancestral grave. It's so thick that you can't even see your own fingers. Ning Suifeng's face became serious. "There's such a thing? Take a look." Ning Qingqing said, "I feel that something has been happening in our family these few days. Could it be that there's something wrong with the feng shui of our ancestral grave?" Ning Suifeng took the phone, opened the video and watched it. Sure enough, the image in the video was of a car. The car's headlights were shining forward. On the right side of the road there was a curtain of night. There was nothing unusual. However, on the left side of the road, there was a thick white fog. It was extremely eye-catching. Compared to the right side, it was very eye-catching. It was impossible not to pay attention to it. The road was still a road, but there was fog on one side and no fog on the other. It was as if this road was the boundary, separating yin and yang. It was clear at a glance. Looking at the rising white fog, there seemed to be countless demons baring their fangs and brandishing their claws in the white fog. It was very creepy. The atmosphere was even more strange and shocking. The driver was obviously scared too. He was very nervous. As he drove, he said to himself, "Why is this place so strange? When I took this road before, it was always quiet. Why is there so much white fog today? This fog is too thick, isn't it? Could it be some kind of ghost? Cough cough. Jinx jinx. Is there some kind of god? Ancestors bless me. I've only passed through this once. It's too late to turn back now. I'll never come here again. It's too scary." The car moved forward slowly at the speed of a turtle. It became clearer that the white fog on the left side rose more than 100 feet high, swaying and rolling. About 20 minutes later, the car finally rushed out of the thick fog. The driver was clearly relieved. He mustered up his courage and looked back, only to see half of a tombstone sticking out of the fog. Ning family? Here. Yes, this is the ancestral grave of the Ning family. The video stopped abruptly. Ning Suifeng's face was gloomy. Tonight, I'll go to the ancestral grave to take a look. Swishaoduo was sweating profusely the entire afternoon as he worked hard to cultivate. He had already switched to the 10x gravity room. After a good round of tossing and turning, he was once again as tired as a dead dog. Finally, Qin Fengyang frowned and dragged him out of the gravity room with a gloomy face and threw him on the ground. Qin Fengyang's mood was extremely bad these days. In the previous battle, he was seriously injured. Even with his cultivation at the peak of the nascent soul transformation stage, he was unconscious for 17 hours before waking up. Because he was seriously injured before, his internal organs were damaged, his body was covered with bruises, and 50 to 60% of his bones were broken. If he didn't have special care, he would be paralyzed for life. But what kind of place was the Star Shield General Administration? What kind of good medicine did they not have? All kinds of good medicine were fed to him. Then Qin Fengyang, who had been suppressing the peak of the nascent soul transformation stage, broke through in his coma. At the moment when Qin Fengyang broke through, he was still in a coma. However, the sword qi that flowed around his body was like a cloud of mist. The sword qi rose and raged, instantly slicing the entire house into pieces. Then a white cloud rushed to the sky, leaping thousands of feet high. The body turned into a white cloud and rushed to the sky. From now on, there is one more person in the clouds. This was the so-called cloud transformation stage. The cloud transformation stage, as the name implied, was above the earth and below the heavens. Those who had this achievement could move freely. Teacher Qin's breakthrough could be said to be a blessing in disguise. When Qin Fengyang woke up, he was completely dumbfounded. I broke through to the cloud transformation stage. I broke through just like that. What the fuck? Then how am I going to die? Breaking through to the cloud transformation stage, and after suppressing it for so long, Qin Fengyang's current level of strength was above many cloud transformation stage cultivators. But this wasn't the main point. The main point was that once one broke through to the cloud transformation stage, one's lifespan would increase greatly. It wasn't something that could be killed just because one wanted to. Teacher Qin, who understood this point, was extremely depressed. So much so that when he saw Swishaoduo like a dead dog, he couldn't help but feel even angrier. I could break through in my sleep even when I was heavily injured, but you actually didn't put in any effort. You clearly had the feeling of breaking through a few days ago, but now you don't even have the feeling of breaking through. You definitely deserve a beating. Get up, Qin Fengyang said sternly. I can't get up. Swishaoduo also felt that he was very pitiful. These few days, he had continuously received luck points, and his meridians were becoming more flexible. His dantian was also becoming bigger and bigger. He really couldn't find the feeling of breaking through like before. Even if he trained himself to death, it would be useless. Chapter 226. Swishaoduo felt that his dantian was as vast as the ocean. No matter how much he cultivated, it would not be filled. Even if he absorbed the energy of the jade of astral souls and filled it to the brim, his dantian could continue to expand as long as he exerted more strength. It was still far from the limit. What the fuck? Can't get up. It's good that you can't get up. Qin Fengyang nodded and kicked Swishaoduo 3 to 4 meters high. Are you up? Are you up? Are you up? These 3 words were repeated in a very rhythmic manner. Swishaoduo was kicked up as soon as he landed. He landed and kicked again. Long Yuxing and the others were all sweating profusely. They lay on the ground and looked up as they watched Swishaoduo being kicked like a shuttlecock by Qin Fengyang. Teacher Qin is really good at kicking. That's right. He can kick with a bent leg, a straight leg, a spinning kick, and even hit the golden bell. Wow, amazing, amazing. 48, 49, 50. Teacher Qin is really good at kicking. He doesn't let the shuttlecock fall to the ground. It's really amazing. That's right. But it would be better if the shuttlecock could shut up. In the air, Swishaoduo was screaming and begging for mercy. Teacher Qin, I was wrong. Although he did not know why he was being kicked, It was always a good attitude to admit his mistake. It would help to alleviate the current bad situation. Qin Fengyang kicked a total of 99 shuttlecocks before he let Zhou Xiaoduo down. He said lightly, "I heard that you like to fly. If you are not on the verge of a breakthrough by tomorrow, fly another 99 times. I have just broken through and need more exercise. If there are any problems, I will take care of it. You will have to work harder." Zhou Xiaoduo wanted to cry but had no tears. Why is my life so hard? I don't want it to be like this. Even with Qin Fengyang's vast experience and knowledge, he did not know that the meridians of the human body could increase their flexibility and the dantian could expand on its own. Such a thing had never happened since ancient times. I believe that not only Teacher Qin but any profound cultivator in this world who saw Zhou Xiaoduo's current state of not being able to find a breakthrough after painstakingly suppressing his cultivation to the point where he couldn't find a breakthrough, combined with his previous rate of improvement, the only conclusion they could come up with was that Zhou Xiaoduo was slacking off. This was a fact that couldn't be defended. Not only did Zhou Xiaoduo take this loss, but he would continue to take it. Zhou Xiaoduo finally regained his vitality after being kicked. Long Yuxing and the others also regained their vitality after being kicked. However, their states of mind was the peak of their moods. It was time for school to end. "Teacher Qin, I would like to apply for leave tomorrow." Zhou Xiaoduo raised his hand weakly. He didn't have any confidence at all. You're already lazy to this extent, and you still want to ask for leave? Do you have anything else in mind? Qin Fengyang's eyes widened. Something really happened. My godfather is dead. Seeing Qin Fengyang's unfriendly gaze, Zhou Xiaoduo hurriedly told him the truth. Godfather? Yes. Qin Fengyang sighed. He had to give Qin Fengyang a lie. Then you can go. Thank you, Teacher Qin. Don't forget your cultivation. Qin Fengyang said word by word. I won't forget. Qin Fengyang sighed softly. After a long time he walked out of the school gate. Teacher Qin had just broken through. It was true that his strength had increased by leaps and bounds. However, it was also true that his realm was not stable and needed to be polished. No matter how much he did not want to break through, he had already broken through. There was no other way. Teacher Qin walked all the way to the school gate. What he saw made his eyes bulge. He saw Zhou Xiaoduo with a 5,000-pound iron block on his head, a 3,000-pound iron armor suit, and more than 100 pounds of weights on his body. He was standing upright on one leg with a large crowd in front of him. He was actually reading his fortune. Oh my God! Qin Fengyang was speechless. This kid was a typical example of someone who valued money more than his life. Hiding behind a tree, he watched as Zhou Xiaoduo fooled these people one by one with the temperament of a charlatan. Then he said, tomorrow. These people probably understood the rules and dispersed in a hubbub. No one stayed behind. Then he saw Zhou Xiaoduo take out his phone and count the messages from the bank one by one. He calculated the total income and his face was already smiling like a flower. Today's income is really good. A total of 1,275,000. What's with this 7,500? Why? Is there a 500 change? Who paid so little? Zhou Xiaoduo was a little angry. Isn't this wasting the fruits of my labor? The money I earned might not even be enough for tonight's expenses. Thinking of the expenses for practicing martial arts at night, Zhou Xiaoduo looked up to the sky and sighed. Who could spend more than 1,000,000 yuan for practicing martial arts in one night? Only Zhou Xiaoduo. More than 1,000,000 yuan. If it was a normal person with this money, they would spend it on prostitutes until they were 80 or 90 years old. But I paid all the fines in one night. I'm really rich. But I'm so rich that my heart is bleeding. That night, the siblings went out to practice martial arts as usual. Zhou Xiaoduo was extremely focused. He had made great progress in practicing his concealed weapon. By 1:30 a.m., he had only paid a total of 888,000 yuan in fines. Zhou Xiaoduo couldn't help but feel surprised at the result. Could it be that he had extra money for today? Zhou Xiaonian watched calmly from the side. At the same time, she used the Moon Sutra to purify her meridians. Her current cultivation was already difficult to advance, But she could use the Moon Sutra as a foundation to transform all the true vitality she had cultivated in the past into the purest moon spiritual source to improve her foundation. After a period of transformation, her dantian would naturally expand and then absorb the spiritual source. Her cultivation method was basically the same as Zhuoxiaoduo's. However, the only difference was that Zhuoxiaoduo actively suppressed it, while Zhuoxiaonian did it naturally. As for Zhuoxiaoduo's relieved behavior, Zhuoxiaonian only snorted in her heart. She purposely went easy on him tonight to let him have some fun first. After practicing for a few days, Zhuoxiaonian knew how much money Zhuoxiaoduo could earn every day. This guy's ability to make money was very strong. Even when the situation wasn't very good, he could still earn 500,000 or 600,000 yuan a day. If he had a good time, he could even earn 1,000,000 yuan a day. Although the reputation of Zhuoxiaoduo's godly image was getting more and more famous, the rich people in Phoenix City were rushing over like a swarm of bees. However, this momentum couldn't be maintained for a long time. It was estimated that most of them had already seen enough. If they continued to watch, they probably wouldn't earn as much as they did now. In another 10 days, it would be considered good if he could earn a stable income of 100,000 yuan a day. But this income of 100,000 yuan, in the eyes of ordinary people, it was already considered a terrifying income. After all, he only relied on his mouth. However, Zhuoxiaoduo's income for the past few days was cleaned out by Zhuoxiaonian every night. After a round of practice, he only had a few hundred yuan left on him at most. And that huge sum of money, along with Zhuoxiaonian's own savings, was transferred to Wu Yuding's account through Zhuoxiaonian's account. Therefore, in the Zhuo family, Wu Yuding was the one who was really rich and imposing. She was like a landlady, sitting there collecting rent every day. Yes, she took from her son through her daughter, and then took from her son and daughter through her daughter. I'll let him save for the next few days. I'll talk about it when he has more money. For now, I'll let him regain some confidence and occasionally take some bonuses to enjoy some benefits. Otherwise, he might give up. Zhuoxiaonian slowly planned in her heart. Her eyebrows were curved and she was full of smiles. She was actually very satisfied with the current situation. Zhuoxiaoduo's mastery of hidden weapons was something that few people in the Yanwu Empire could match up to, even if it was only for now. In the cultivation of hidden weapons, the strength of the attack and the accuracy were the key points, but they were not the most important. Only the control was the most important. In terms of control, Zhuoxiaoduo could be said to have reached the point where he could do whatever he wanted. He was always successful. He had a good grasp of the severity of his attacks. He was almost at the level of perfection. In all fairness, Zhuoxiaonian's current request for Zhuoxiaoduo was nitpicking and nitpicking. However, Zhuoxiaonian still hoped that Zhuoxiaoduo could go one step further. It would be better if he could be more subtle and unexpected. In addition, in the past few days of practice, Zhuoxiaonian faintly realized that hidden weapons, a skill that was not valued by the high-level cultivators in the astral souls, could be a real life-saving asset for Zhuoxiaoduo. It was also because of this concept that Zhuoxiaonian could never be satisfied with the height of Zhuoxiaoduo's hidden weapons. After Zhuoxiaoduo reached the current standard of hidden weapons, Zhuoxiaonian brought out a new set of items that she had prepared long ago. Many of these items were just Zhuoxiaonian's imagination. Many of them were simply the idealization of special effects in movies and television. She used them to train Zhuoxiaoduo. If Zhuoxiaoduo knew Zhuoxiaonian's real thoughts, he would probably leave directly. You're fooling a fool. I'm not going to train anymore. Unfortunately, he had no idea how absurd and impossible the goal he was trying to achieve was. He only knew that all the standards in Zhuoxiaonian's hands were given to him by He Yuanyue to test himself by Zhuoxiaonian. So it was also on this night. Ning Suifeng brought all the direct descendants of the family to the Ning family's ancestral grave quietly. Before they even got close, they were already enraged by what they saw and heard. Near the Ning family's ancestral grave, countless people gathered and all of them were holding up their phones to take pictures. Some of them were even holding live streaming sticks. Let's take a walk and take a look. Today we've seen an ancient wonder. Brothers, come and take a look. Come and take a look. It's quiet all around. Only this area has white fog rising dozens of meters. This is where the ancient wonder is located. It's where the ancestral grave of the ancient Ning family in Phoenix City is located. Otherwise, the Ning family is a 1,000-year-old family. It's said that the ancestral grave is smoking. This is just hearsay, right? Today I'll show you the truth. This place is really smoking. Begging for monthly votes. He. Chapter 227. Ning Suifeng was so angry that his nose was almost crooked. So many of you came to take pictures of my family's ancestral grave? So many people are actually broadcasting my family's ancestral grave? What a bastard! A bunch of bastards! Ning Suifeng let out a thunderous roar. Capture all these people for me. Confiscate all their mobile phones. Then find their families one by one and compensate each of them 1 million yuan. Those who can't pay will be buried alive. What the hell? Ning Suifeng was so angry that his face turned purple. The Ning family has been standing for thousands of years. We have been indifferent and detached from the world for so many years. Why don't you know what's good for you? Don't you have any respect for us? How can you let people come to the ancestral grave to broadcast? The Ning family members were all scolded with their heads lowered. Take them all away. But after a while, hundreds of cars opened up the road and surrounded this place. All the people who came here to join in the fun were all caught in the cars and driven away. Ning Suifeng walked slowly into the thick fog with a gloomy face. This fog was not big, but it was so thick that it was unbelievable. Once you stretched out your hand, you couldn't even see your own arm, let alone your 5 fingers. Look for the location of the ancestor's grave. Ning Suifeng's voice was very gloomy. Everyone moved forward step by step in the white fog. At this time they couldn't see anything with their eyes, and even their divine thoughts had lost their effect. Often after a few steps they would bump into a tombstone. Or they would step on the tombstone if they suddenly stepped on it. Or they would suddenly go up a step, and they would reach the front of the grave. In short, the whole way was full of bumps and bruises. Whether it was the strong light of flashlights, infrared rays, mobile phone fluorescent light, or even torches, they were all useless. Even the cultivators who had reached the nascent soul realm lost all their advantages in this thick fog. The strong palm wind and fist wind formed by their tyrannical cultivation couldn't change the white fog at all. At most it would fluctuate a little and then it would be over. In the end they were afraid of breaking the tombstone and disrespecting their ancestors, so they didn't dare to use all their strength. Then they could only take it step by step. After a full 1.5 hours, they finally reached the center of the ancestral grave. Everyone came to the center, and as far as the eye could see, everyone from the Ning clan was speechless. The ancestral grave in the middle was like a huge chimney, with thick white smoke billowing out from the bottom. It was as if there was a fire in the underworld, constantly gushing out. What's going on? Who can tell me what's going on? Ning Suifeng widened his eyes, his entire body trembling. All the members of the Ning family's direct bloodline knelt on the ground as they witnessed this scene. Everyone felt their souls tremble for some reason. The previous live stream was right. In the past, when they scolded and praised people, they would often say, "Your ancestors' graves are smoking." However, this was just an old saying. But now, the ancestral grave of the Ning clan was really emitting white smoke. No matter if it was cursing or praising, there had never been such a thing as white smoke. Green smoke rises from the ancestral grave. Praising someone is a good thing. Black smoke coming out of the ancestral grave was a sign of insult. But white smoke was rising from the ancestral graves. This was a little unclear. The white smoke didn't stop because of the arrival of the Ning clan. It was still gushing out crazily. When the members of the Ning clan all knelt down, the momentum of rushing out was even more turbulent. After this continued for a while. With a sudden loud bang, the entire ancestral grave collapsed. Everyone present was caught off guard and fell into the collapsed grave pit. They were all dizzy and in a mess. In the haze, everyone could vaguely see a shadow slowly appear in the white fog. His clothes were simple and unadorned, and his face could not be seen clearly. In the thick white fog he stood in the void. This shadow stood for a while, then suddenly raised a hand and pointed to the east. Everyone looked to the east, but there was nothing. Then with a loud bang, a sudden bolt of lightning fell and smashed the shadow into pieces. Woo-woo-woo! Suddenly a fierce wind blew. The white smoke above the Ning clan's ancestral grave, which had been condensed and didn't dissipate even with a strong force, dissipated quietly and quickly. At most, it took half a cup of tea's time for the white smoke to dissipate. Everyone in the grave pit looked up. The clear sky and the Milky Way were all reflected in their eyes. Where were the clouds? But where did the lightning in the sky come from? And that shadow pointed to the east. Where was it pointing to? What was its intention? Everyone felt that there seemed to be a vibration under their feet. They hurriedly jumped up, only to find that the whole ground was beginning to shake. Earthquake. Let's go. Everyone flew out together. The moment they were in the air, they heard another loud bang. The entire Ning clan's ancestral grave, which was hundreds of miles in radius, collapsed. Where the ancestral grave was originally, it became a bottomless pit. In the deep pit, there was a faint white smoke rising, but the bottom couldn't be seen for a while. The whole ground fell down, but there was no echo for a long time. Seeing this, Ning Qingcheng was shocked. Her heart was in a mess and she almost fell down. Fortunately, Ning Suifeng hurriedly reached out and pulled her out of the deep pit with his daughter. Everyone in the Ning clan stood high in the sky and looked down at the big pit. Everyone's expression was complicated, and their feelings were even more indescribable. After about a minute, a series of muffled noises faintly came from the ground. This was the bottom. What's going on? Everyone in the Ning clan was covered in cold sweat. I don't know. The ancestral grave is gone. Another person's face was pale, and there was an unspeakable fear in his eyes. My Ning clan. What kind of heinous thing did we do? How did the situation become like this? The others didn't speak. The Ning clan had been entrenched in this Phoenix city for thousands of years. Speaking of heinous things, they had done quite a lot. After all, if they didn't do those things, would the Ning clan be where it was today? Let's go back first. Ning Suifeng's face was dark. He waved his hand and said, wait until dawn, when the yang energy is the strongest, and then come back to see what's going on. Yes. The next morning, Blind Hong's funeral was held. Zhuo was wearing a green robe and white hemp shoes. A hemp rope was tied around his waist, and a mourning hat was on his head. He was sending his godfather off. After all, he wasn't his biological son, so there was no need for him to wear mourning clothes. A pair of hemp shoes and a hemp rope were enough. All the members of the Zhuo clan were present. Zhuo Xiaonian and Wu Yuding were also present as family members to send him off. The funeral procession went all the way out of the city gate and to the southwest side of the city by the main road. That was the grave that Blind Hong had chosen for himself long ago. Zhuo knelt down and kowtowed 9 times. He sang loudly, Godfather, rest in peace. Blessings in the netherworld. The gate of reincarnation in the netherworld is open. His voice echoed between heaven and earth for a long time. Legend had it that after a person died, they needed their closest relatives to escort their soul to the grave and shout for the gate of reincarnation in the netherworld to open. Only then would the deceased be able to rest in peace. Otherwise, they would have to wait for an opportunity to cross over before they could rest in peace. Before that, they would be reduced to a wandering ghost. If something went wrong, their soul would disperse and they would never be reincarnated. Zhuo was also wearing a green robe with a white cloth wrapped around his sleeves. He wore black cloth shoes and held a big shovel in his hand. Everyone carried Blind Hong's coffin down. Zhuo was the first to jump down. He chose the head and tail of the coffin and placed a high-grade jade of astral souls under Blind Hong's head. Blind, let's meet again in the next life. Zhuo stood there for a long time. He sighed softly and said, I will cover your grave now. Blind Hong, you have a godson to send you off, a brother to cover your grave, and the protection of the astral souls. You chose your grave when you were alive. This life is worth it. If you are in heaven, remember to take good care of your godson. He lifted up the large shovel and shoveled a handful of yellow dirt into the ground. Throughout the entire process, Zhuo did not let anyone, including Zhuo, interfere. He only piled up the grave by himself. He only stopped when he reached the last shovel of soil. Xiaoduo, lay this last shovel of soil for your godfather. Show your filial piety as a son. Not too much, not too little. Don't shake it and don't scatter it. Okay. Xiaoduo steadily placed the last shovel of soil on the grave. Then he erected the tombstone. Godfather Hong Dashui's grave. Godson Zhuo Duo erects it. It was a very simple tombstone. It was done. Then, an unforeseen event happened. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, countless grasses suddenly sprouted from the grave mound that had just been piled up. Almost in the blink of an eye, the entire tombstone was covered by 3 feet of lush grass. And this was only the beginning. Countless vines appeared out of thin air, growing longer and longer. One on the left and one on the right, they quickly climbed up the grave and entangled with each other, wrapping around the tombstone. In the eyes of everyone present, it was as if the vines were used to make a tight door. The whole process took less than 10 minutes. However, the entire grave was hidden in the wilderness. At a glance, it was no different from the weeds all over the ground. The mysteries of the world and the changes were so amazing. It was a marvelous spectacle. Zhuo sighed softly. Friends of one life, enemies of 2 lives. But in this life, blind man, I have given you a good gift. Clap, clap, clap. He opened all the bottles of wine he brought and poured them on the grass. If there is a next life, you may not be willing to drink with me again. Zhuo smiled faintly. In this life there is no winner or loser. Of course you leave first. You win. Brother, I'll call you brother for the last time. Cheers. After saying that, he raised a bottle of wine and gulped it down. That was the last bottle of wine. Chapter 228. Wu Yuding stood shoulder to shoulder with him and said with a smile, "The blind man has no regrets in his life to have you as a friend and a son to send him off." "Yes. Let's go." Zhuo laughed and said, "Let's go home." Zhuo Duo was worried and asked, "Dad, are you okay?" Zhuo Duo felt that his father's mental state was not normal these days. "I'm fine. I finally sent him away. No matter if it's early or late, I'm relieved of one of my worries." Zhuo said, "Tinger, remember to buy some food and some good wine on the way back. I'm going to have a good drink tonight. I'm going to get drunk tonight." Wu Yuding laughed and said, "Everything happens for a reason. I'll count you in." Zhuo Xiaonian and Zhuo Duo looked at each other and felt that it was strange. In the past, it was fine when their father said that he wanted to drink. If he was drunk, their mother would have started yelling at them. But today, she was unusually supportive of them. "Xiao Duo, you must always remember," Wu Yuding said softly. "You have such a godfather." "Yes." Zhuo Duo nodded. "What I'm saying is, you must always remember, truly remember your godfather," Wu Yuding exhorted once again. This time Zhuo Duo felt the pressure and said seriously, "Mom, don't worry. I will remember. I have Hong Dashui as my godfather." Wu Yuding turned to Zhuo Xiaonian and said, "Nianer, Mom, your brother's godfather is your godfather. Do you understand?" "Yes. Yes. In the future, whether you are the daughter of the Zhuo family or the daughter-in-law of the Zhuo family, he will be your godfather. Do you understand?" Zhuo Xiaonian blushed and said shyly, "Mom, I will remember." Lowering her head, Zhuo Duo could clearly see that Nian Nian cat, who often made him bungee jump in the air. Even her ears were red. Under the transparent sun they were pink and cute. He reached out and touched them and said in surprise, "Mom, look. Sister Nian Nian's ears are transparent." Before Wu Yuding could say anything, Zhuo Duo had started to bungee jump again. Embarrassed and angry, Zhuo Xiaonian, whose body was almost limp from his pinch, went berserk and turned into a female T-Rex. Zhuo Duo rushed up like a rocket. As soon as he landed, he shot up again like a rocket, even higher than the first time. He was already at the peak of the martial master level, and his true cultivation was not inferior to that of a high-level Xiantian. He was not afraid of such a height at all, but when it came down to it, he still screamed and wailed, "Spare me! Save me!" Similar words were being shouted incessantly. What if Nian Nian finds out that I am not afraid and changes the punishment? Bungee jumping is still the best. To tell you the truth, I'm already used to it, so used to it, so used to it. The Zhuo family was at the funeral. The Ning family and the Meng family were not idle either. Although the people of the Star Shield General Administration were still on the move and looked like they wanted to catch everyone, the two families could not hold back anymore. After all, too many things had happened in the past few days, and they were all big events. Today, yesterday and last night, the Meng family's bloodline had lost 7 people due to all kinds of reasons. For branch companies were paralyzed because of all kinds of things. The Ning family. Their ancestral grave collapsed. Both the Ning and Meng families were looking for Blind Hong, but they got the news that Blind Hong was dead and the funeral was today. The two families felt that they had been fucked. Otherwise, how could they be so unlucky? They had never felt that Blind Hong was so important. Even when they asked Blind Hong to check feng shui, they did not feel that Blind Hong would be so important today. But at this important moment he died. The few qi gazers that they found during this period of time were all useless. This made Meng Tianyue and Ning Suifeng want to kill them. You said you could not see anything. How could you be qi watchers? They were busy for the whole day, but there was no clue. Ning Suifeng was thinking. The figure that suddenly appeared in the white fog. What did it mean by pointing to the east? Was it a warning from the ancestors to the descendants? Was it from the east? What was in the east? The Ning family went to the east of the city to search. But everyone in the Ning family was confused. You didn't say anything. What did you want us to search for? Ning Suifeng also had a stomach full of bitterness. That figure only pointed to the east. What can I say? For the whole day, the Ning family almost turned the east of the city upside down. They went in and out of all the residential areas and suburbs in the east of the city. Almost every family was visited. Naturally, the Fengwu home district in the east of the city near the city center could not be missed. However, they found nothing. All the Ning family members were exhausted and their eyes were blank. Ancestor, what did you want us to look for? Or what? They were busy until night. Everyone replied to Ning Suifeng with a confused expression. Ning Suifeng was also helpless. Seeing that it was almost midnight, Ning Suifeng made up his mind and called someone over. Go. Bring 2 people and see if you can kill the spiritual thought goddess. Bring your phone. If there are any changes, contact me at any time or I'll call you. The person accepted the order and left. Ning Suifeng was bored of waiting, so he went to the Meng group to see if Meng Tianyue had any ideas. If there was a way, he would immediately call that person and stop the operation. After all, getting rid of the spiritual thought goddess was the last resort. As long as there was some hope, Ning Suifeng did not want the spiritual thought goddess to die at this time. When he arrived, the Meng group was having a meeting. Participants: Meng Tianyue, Meng Chuntian and all the Qi watchers. Ning Suifeng sat down quietly with a gloomy face and did not say a word. There was only one topic in the meeting: how to solve this imminent feng shui situation. After some discussion, everyone was at a loss. In the end, Brother Feng came up with another idea. If you want to find out the enemy's dirty tricks, there's another way. What is it? This method is just a legend. I'm not sure if it's useful. It can only be said to be an attempt or a reference. Speak. Yes, it's to find the most talented local youth. Because this person must be nurtured by the general trend of Phoenix City. As long as we take his blood essence and activate the compass, a few Qi watchers will work together and gather the general trend of the heavenly Tao in Phoenix City. We will find all the arrangements that don't conform to the general trend of the heavenly Tao and destroy them. There's such a method? This method is only limited to what I know. I haven't personally experienced it or controlled it, so it can only be said to be a reference. Yes, I've heard of this method, but it seems that no one has succeeded. I'm not sure if it's true or not and if it's feasible. Since you've heard of it, it's worth a try. Then, who is the most talented person in Phoenix City? And it's a male? Everyone looked at each other. All these years, the Meng family and Ning family had been paying attention to the female geniuses in Phoenix City, but they had never paid attention to the male geniuses. After hearing this method, the Meng family and Ning family were excited for a moment, but then they were worried again. The direction of the investigation made everyone helpless. Check all the martial arts schools? Male geniuses. We have to find the most talented one. Are we going to Star Shield to check? The one who improved the most might not be the most talented one. We have to check the files, check the Skynet, and compare it with many parties to confirm. Who has connections to the Skynet? Everyone shook their heads. The Skynet was the most confidential information network in the entire country. Other than the higher-ups who had the authority to check it, no one else could touch it. This matter can't be delayed any longer. If there's no way, we have to think of a way. If there's no connection, we have to find one. If we drag this on for a few more days, I'm afraid our two families will be finished. I do have a direction. Perhaps I can give it a try. Yi Zichen thought. Brother Feng, who had met Swishow Duo before, pondered and said, when I first came to Phoenix City, I saw a young man on the street. Let's not talk about this child's aptitude for now. His cultivation is only average, but his aura, at least from the qi examination technique, I dare to say that this person's qi is second to none in the entire Phoenix City. Even if he's placed in the entire Central Plains, even in the entire Yanwu Empire, he's at the top of the list. Meng Tianyue's eyes lit up and said, who is it? Mister, do you know the person's name? Of course. Brother Feng smiled proudly. The other three companions looked at him enviously. Was this guy the same kid who said that he would make a good karma? To think that there would be a reversal here. This was clearly a stroke of luck. Meeting such a person is fate. Naturally, I went up to test him. Brother Feng said proudly, so I went up and asked for the kid's name in school. That child wasn't wary of me at all, so he told me everything very straightforwardly. Meng Tianyue and Ning Suifeng's eyes lit up when they heard this. The few Qi watchers that were invited were indeed somewhat useful. May I ask Master Feng, what's the kid's name? Meng Tianyue waved her hand and Meng Chuntian took out a bank card and stuffed it into Brother Feng's hand. Master Feng, this is just a token of my appreciation. There's 2 million in this card. No matter if it's a success or not, it's yours. Of course, if it's a success, there will be great rewards. 2 million. The eyes of the other Qi observation experts were already turning green. They hadn't even done anything yet, and they were already given 2 million? Great rewards after? This luck was equivalent to giving a mountain of gold to anyone they met on the street? Brother Feng's face almost bloomed. He tried his best to be reserved and accepted it. He said proudly, that kid is about 17 or 18 years old. His name is Tung Hao and he's studying in Phoenix City's martial arts school. Chapter 229. Tung Hao. Ning Suifeng immediately stood up. Go investigate this Tung Hao. There's no need to investigate. Meng Tianyue took a deep breath and replied excitedly, I didn't expect it to be Tung Hao. Ning Suifeng suddenly turned his head. You know this genius? Meng Tianyue's expression completely relaxed. Brother Ning, you should know him. Even if you don't know him, you should know his father. Oh, there should be only one Tung Hao in number 1 middle school. He's the son of Deputy Director Tung Guangyuan of the Phoenix City Business Bureau. It's said that a few years ago, he and 2 other playboys created the title of Phoenix City's 3rd young master. Haha. Meng Tianyue said. It's said that he has already reached the innate realm. If that's the case, he can really be considered a cultivation genius. When Ning Suifeng heard this, he immediately relaxed. Then this matter is really easy to handle. A Shao deputy director of the City Business Bureau. What's there to be troubled about? Meng Tianyue nodded, turned her head and said, Master Feng, the formation you mentioned, how many drops of blood of this genius? Or all of his blood? Master Feng coughed and said, under the condition that it doesn't endanger his life, the more the better. Meng Tianyue nodded and said confidently, I understand, leave this matter to me. Last time when Tung Guang'an drugged a girl in my club, I ordered my subordinates to settle it for him. Moreover, these years my subordinates have given Deputy Director Tung tens of millions. It's time to use it. Ning Suifeng was gratified. Good, this can't be better. Meng Tianyue casually took out her phone and made a call. However, the other side immediately picked it up after just 1 ring. Meng Tianyue smiled faintly and turned on the hands-free mode. The other side had already started to speak with surprise, flattery, and disbelief. From the tone of the voice, one could imagine that the person on the other side was also bowing when he picked up the phone. Is this Boss Meng? I'm Tung Guang'an. Yes, Little Tung of the City Business Bureau. Meng Tianyue smiled faintly and said enthusiastically, Director Tung, long time no see. I am Meng Tianyue. Hello, Boss Meng. I didn't expect you to call me personally. When I saw the number just now, I thought I was dreaming. Boss Meng, you're too polite. If there's anything, just let the secretary inform me. The enthusiasm of the deputy director of the city's Commerce Bureau had already reached a point where it made one's hair stand on end. Meng Tianyue smiled and said, "How could I? Last time there was a problem with the local tax of the Meng Corporation, and it was all solved by Chief Tung. I haven't had the chance to thank Chief Tung yet. Besides, we have been friends for so many years, how could I not make this call? Chief Tung, we're brothers. Why are you treating me like an outsider?" On the other side, Tang Guangyuan's voice also became lively. I don't dare. Thank you for calling me brother, CEO Meng. My life is really worth it, but I really don't deserve it. CEO Meng, you are like the sun in the sky. Ha ha, Brother Tung is too polite. Meng Tianyue pondered for a moment and said, Brother Tung, when is it convenient for our two families to have a meal? Hearing this, Tang Guangyuan was so happy that he almost fainted. As long as Boss Meng says it, it's convenient for me at any time. Even now it's convenient. Haha. Meng Tianyue looked at the time and said, Chief Tung, we don't need to be in such a hurry. How about this? How about tomorrow morning? I'll bring my sister-in-law and niece. You also bring your sister-in-law and nephew. Tung Hao, right? Haha, let's have a meal together and have a good chat. We haven't seen each other for a long time, let's have a drink. On the other side, Tang Guangyun's whole body trembled. Tomorrow morning? Okay. Our family will definitely arrive on time. Boss Meng, where are we going? Let's go to my family's Yunduan Pavilion, the top floor. Meng Tianyue smiled kindly and said, Don't forget to bring Tung Hao and sister-in-law. Don't worry, Boss Meng is giving me face. Our whole family will definitely be there. Tang Guangyun put down the phone and sat on the sofa in a daze for more than 10 minutes. Suddenly, he jumped up with a roar and hugged his wife and spun around 17 or 18 times. What's wrong with you? His wife was puzzled. Ever since she gave birth and became fat, her husband almost never touched her. Not to mention he was so unruffled today. Do you know who called me just now? Tang Guangyuan's voice was trembling and his pupils were dilated. Guess. Who? Meng. Tang Guangyuan excitedly danced with joy. Our Phoenix City's richest person. Even in the Central Plains, he's one of the top richest people. Wife, we're going to be rich this time. We're going to be rich. Meng Tianyue personally called and invited our whole family to a meal. He even specially said that there will only be 2 of us. He brought his wife, son, and daughter, and asked me to bring you and our son. Tang Guangyuan's breathing quickened and his eyes widened. Do you know what this means? We're going to be rich. He even called me brother just now and wanted to thank me. His wife frowned and said, This is for no reason. Why would Meng Tianyue invite us to a meal? There has to be a reason for this, right? Tang Guangyuan snorted and said, Then you're underestimating your husband. You don't know how much money Meng Corporation has saved through my hands all these years? What's wrong with treating me to a meal? Get ready and dress prettily tomorrow. Tang Guangyuan looked at his wife and saw her swollen waist, thick and round thighs, and a figure that did not have any curves. He could not help but feel disgusted and said, Why don't you know how to tidy yourself up? Sigh, that's it. Oh right, remember to call little Hao and tell him to come back tonight. Don't delay tomorrow's matter. On the other side, Meng Tianyue put down the phone and said with a smile, Done. Ning Suifeng said, Tomorrow we'll act according to the situation. If the first time doesn't work, maybe we'll need a second time. But it doesn't matter. Zhao's deputy director of the city's commerce bureau, even if his whole family evaporates, it's not a big deal. Meng Tianyue nodded with a smile. Ning Suifeng suddenly thought of something and said with a dignified face, Well, looking east from my family's ancestral grave, it seems to be number 1 middle school, right? Meng Tianyue and the others were all stunned. Everyone knew that the Ning family's ancestral grave had directly collapsed and fell to an unknown place. Everyone had been avoiding this topic, fearing that it would make Ning Suifeng unhappy. Who would have thought that he would bring it up himself? Meng Chuntian at the side pondered for a moment and said, Yes, looking east from the Ning family's ancestral grave, that's number 1 middle school. Ning Suifeng snorted and said, Then this Tang Guangyuan's home. Which direction is it located in? Meng Chuntian found Tang Guangyuan's mobile phone number and checked the location. He said, It's also in the number 1 middle school area. Ning Suifeng raised his head and murmured, Is it really his home? He frowned and couldn't figure it out. How could it be? The Teng family? What Teng family? Meng Tianyue asked. Nothing. Ning Suifeng's eyes flickered with surprise and doubt. He then took out his mobile phone and made a call. Stop the operation tonight and wait until tomorrow afternoon. He put down his mobile phone and murmured, "What's going on?" Zhou family. After dinner, Zhou Xiaoduo looked at Zhou Xiaonian's face again as usual. He couldn't help but feel relieved. Now Zhou Xiaonian's face looked much better than before. Even though the death aura was still there, it had shrunk a lot and occupied less than 70% of the original. The purple aura behind the death aura was gradually showing signs of eruption. Looking at her face now, she has at least a 30% chance of survival. While Zhou Xiaoduo was worried, he also felt gratified. His current physiognomy was much better than the first time he saw it, when he looked like he was going to die for sure. The torment during this period of time was not in vain. It was effective. Hard work could indeed change one's fate. Zhou Xiaoduo poured a bowl of chicken soup for the soul in his heart, and became more energetic. Then, he looked at himself in the mirror and ran his fingers through his hair. He felt a little depressed. If being handsome could help him overcome a tribulation, then he was willing to offset all the tribulations that Nian Nian had to face in her life. Yes, there's one more important thing. That is, I've accumulated 13 drops of luck points. After a few days of fortune reading, I've accumulated quite a lot of luck points. Little by little, I've accumulated so much. But 13 drops. Why haven't I leveled up? I think my fortune reading skills are definitely qualified to level up. I've obviously reached the pinnacle of perfection. Why haven't I leveled up? Zhou Xiaoduo was especially depressed about this. But after being depressed for a while, he threw this matter to the back of his mind. The good thing about Master Zhuo's personality was that if there was something troubling him, it would be fine if he didn't think about it. Nian Nian. Ma. Sis. He turned around and wanted to call her Nian Nian cat. But then he remembered that if he called her by her full name he might get beaten up. He forced himself to change it and called her Ma. You have money again? Zhou Xiaonian rolled her eyes. Money? Isn't it just money? I have plenty. Master Zhou has nothing but money. Zhou Xiaoduo patted his chest. Then let's go and cultivate. Zhou Xiaonian grabbed the sword that she had placed in the room as an air conditioner and walked out valiantly. There was one more thing to add. Because it was summer, the weather was hot. The Zhou family used an air conditioner. But the air from the air conditioner was too strong and not nutritious. Zhou Xiaonian's sword was in the scabbard, and it slowly emitted a bit of cold spiritual energy. Under Zhou Xiaonian's delicate control, the temperature of the entire Zhou family was maintained at 23 or 24 degrees. It was not only cool and pleasant, but also rich in spiritual energy that nourished the body from time to time. It could be said that it was a magical weapon for home travel. Chapter 230. After Zhou Xiaoduo found out about this, Zhou Xiaonian's spirit snatcher sword transformed into the family's natural air conditioner. And Zhou Chonglu walked out of the study. Dad, you and Xiaoduo are practicing swordsmanship. Why do you need a sword? Zhou Chonglu said matter-of-factly, leave the sword. You just need to wear the scabbard. Oh, Zhou Xiaonian thought about it and agreed. Why would I need a sword when I'm practicing swordsmanship with a dog? I'd better put down the whole sword. A branch will be enough, Zhou Xiaonian said and put down the sword. Zhou Xiaoduo was speechless for a while. How much do you look down on me? Zhou Xiaoduo was extremely depressed. Am I that weak? Zhou Chonglu ignored him. Seeing that the natural air conditioner was left behind, he went back to his study. Let's go. I'll show you how weak you are. You'll know yourself clearly. Zhou Xiaonian excitedly pulled Zhou Xiaoduo away. After leaving the house, Zhou Xiaoduo looked at the bright moon in the sky. Suddenly there was a surge of tenderness in his heart. In an instant he had a feeling today. Seems to be a good day to fall in love. Under the moonlight, what a good atmosphere. Thinking of this, he inexplicably felt the moonlight soften. It was like a dream, illusion, and intoxication. It was really hazy. Zhou Xiaoduo felt his heart suddenly melt. So he turned his head to look at Zhou Xiaonian. The more he looked at her, the more he felt that she was really beautiful. None of the women he had seen could be more beautiful than Zhuo Xiaonian. He couldn't help but feel more and more restless in his heart. He felt that his throat was a little dry. He racked his brains and thought, how should I start a relationship? What should I say first? He thought and thought, but he had no clue at all. However, it was a good habit to ask when you didn't understand. If you didn't ask when you didn't understand, you would never understand. So Zhuo Xiaoduo humbly asked shamelessly, Sister Nian Nian, have you ever been in love? Zhuo Xiaonian was so shocked by this sentence that she almost fainted. She stopped and turned her head. Her gaze was sharp and puzzled. What do you mean? Zhuo Xiaoduo plucked up his courage and put on what he thought was his most handsome pose and face. Actually, I don't know how to fall in love. Zhuo Xiaonian? Zhuo Xiao's heart was beating like a drum. Actually, I know that you haven't been in a relationship. Zhuo Xiaonian's face darkened. What do you mean? What do you mean? Zhuo Xiaoduo saw Zhuo Xiaonian's unhappy expression, and his eyes seemed to be about to shoot out a murderous glint. Suddenly, he felt his breath deflate, and immediately became terrified. He muttered, tonight, should we practice swords or concealed weapons? Oh. Zhuo Xiaonian was confused. She subconsciously put her hand on Zhuo Xiaoduo's forehead and asked, what's wrong with you? Are you sick? Zhuo Xiaoduo inexplicably felt that he was too cowardly. He was angry at himself for not living up to expectations, but he didn't dare to change. He could only choose to continue being a coward. He couldn't help but feel exasperated. He said angrily, isn't it just being beaten up by you? He wasn't angry at Zhuo Xiaonian but at himself. Zhuo Xiaoduo, why are you so cowardly? Why are you so cowardly? Go ahead. Hug her. Kiss her. Hurried. He kept scolding himself in his heart and encouraging himself, but his feet seemed to have grown roots and he didn't dare to move. Zhuo Xiaonian increasingly felt that this guy might be crazy. She said angrily, beat you up? You're still not convinced? Zhuo Xiaoduo's heart suddenly trembled. He said in a low voice, I'm convinced. Zhuo Xiaonian snorted and looked at him sideways. Her big white eyes were exposed. She asked meaningfully, do you want to fall in love? Ahem. Zhuo Xiaoduo was surprised to find that the topic had turned back. He quickly said, actually it's not that. I just feel that way. I'm already so old, but I still don't know what it's like to fall in love. How regretful that would be. Zhuo Xiaonian's eyes narrowed dangerously. She said, you want to know what it's like to fall in love? Am I right? Zhuo Xiaoduo nodded like a chick pecking at rice. Yes, yes. You see, it's a good time to fall in love. Zhuo Xiaonian's eyes were cold. You have a target? With that, Governor Wan's daughter? Zhuo Xiaoduo was confused. What are you talking about? How is it Governor Wan's daughter? What does it have to do with her? Zhuo Xiaonian smiled gently, but there was a hint of danger in her smile. She said, it's okay, doggy. At your age, it's normal to think about these things. But it's actually very easy to decide whether or not to think about it. Don't think about it? Why not? As long as you have enough training, you naturally won't think about it. Zhuo Xiaonian gritted her teeth and said, when you train until you don't know anything and can't think of anything, you're so tired that you only want to sleep, then you won't think about these things anymore. We're almost there. Let's train well tonight. You'll realize how inappropriate it is for you to think about falling in love. The path of cultivation is like rowing a boat against the current. The so-called flower and moonlight are all superfluous. Zhuo Xiaonian showed her canine teeth and smiled like a devil. Zhuo Xiaoduo panicked and said, I didn't mean that, Sister Nian Nian, look at me. I think you're still asking for a beating. Do you want me to tire you out again? Zhuo Xiaoduo said sadly, Sister Nian Nian, actually what I want to say is, what do you think of my looks? I'm quite handsome, right? Zhuo Xiaonian smiled faintly. I'll make you even more handsome in a moment. So handsome that it's tragic. She grabbed Zhuo Xiaoduo and left as if she was riding the clouds. That night, Zhuo Xiaoduo was indeed abused like never before. The money he had just earned was all used up, and he didn't even get a single reward. In other words, he didn't pass half a time. He didn't meet the standards the whole time. He was fined until he was hovering between life and death. He was also beaten black and blue by the fist and leg training, and his whole body was in pain from the sword training. He was indeed tragically handsome. Swixiaonian held a tree branch and supervised him fiercely. Whenever she saw that something was wrong with his movements, she would hit him with the branch without mercy. The pitiful Zhuxiaoduo was carrying a 200 kilograms weight. How could it be easy for him to perfect his movements? Naturally, he was beaten up repeatedly. Fall in love. You want to fall in love. Zhuxiaonian muttered in her heart, you actually want to know what it's like to fall in love. Originally, I wanted to give you some benefits today, and let you take home some rewards. Now it seems like there's no need. There's no need at all. For people like you who want to fall in love, you need to be taught a lesson. Finally, it was midnight. Zhuxiaoduo lay on the ground with his arms and legs spread out, panting heavily. His whole body had been trained to the point that he didn't even have the strength to move a finger. Swixiaonian walked over and looked down at him. Then she squatted down and asked gently, are you tired? Yes. Zhuxiaoduo rolled his eyes and panted heavily. Do you still want to fall in love? No. I don't want to. Zhuxiaoduo shuddered at the question. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. I'm really cheap. I asked for it. This is a witch. Okay. Zhuxiaonian sat down beside him and said leisurely, why do you suddenly want to know what it's like to fall in love? Zhuxiaoduo complained, I just want to fall in love with you. If you don't want to, then don't. Do you have to hit me so hard? I won't say that I want to fall in love with you in the future even if you beat me to death. Zhuxiaonian was stunned when she heard that. After a while, her face turned red and she turned around as if she had been electrocuted. What did you say? I said I want to fall in love with you. Zhuxiaoduo's face was swollen and his head was swollen. He was extremely sad. Okay. You made me. I really don't want to anymore. Everything is gone. With me? Zhuxiaonian knew that she had misunderstood at this time. For a moment she felt weak all over. She bit her lips and asked, didn't you say that the classmate of the governor's daughter? Wanli Xiao? Wanli Xiao is Long Yuxing's fiancé. What does it have to do with me? Zhuxiaoduo murmured. Long Yuxing doesn't want to. If Long Yuxing wants to, you can just fall in love with him directly. Zhuxiaonian squinted her eyes. Why do I feel that you are a little regretful? What do you think? What's wrong with your brain? How can you see that I am regretful? Zhuxiaoduo felt wronged. He was so melancholy that he turned his head and said, I just want to fall in love. Why is it so difficult? Zhuxiaonian snorted, but unexpectedly didn't hit him. Zhuxiaoduo couldn't help but stop talking. He carefully and sneakily looked at Zhuxiaonian's face. Was it the sign of a coming storm? He saw Zhuxiaonian sitting quietly under the moonlight. Her long hair was fluttering in the breeze. Her eyes were like water, and there was a smile on her lips. She looked intoxicated. She was indescribably beautiful. His little heart, which had just been beaten to extinguish the idea of falling in love, couldn't help but beat fast again. You were so fierce just now. You are so beautiful now. Who wants to fall in love with you? Zhuxiaonian pouted and rolled her eyes. She pretended to be fierce, but the corners of her mouth and the corners of her eyes were curved. She couldn't be fierce. She thought to herself, if he brings it up again tomorrow, will I give him a chance? Thinking about it, she felt confused. She turned her head and saw that this guy's eyes were rolling around. She didn't know what he was thinking. Occasionally, he would sneak a glance at her. Zhuxiaonian suddenly felt indescribably shy. She was about to say something to break the silence. Suddenly, her expression froze. It seemed that there were a few auras silently approaching here. Someone is coming. I'm afraid they are up to no good. Zhuxiaonian pushed Zhuxiaoduo. Have you recovered? I have recovered. Don't move. Zhuxiaonian's spirit suddenly tensed up. She was even more annoyed. She was about to clear up the misunderstanding with Gouda, but someone actually disturbed her. She was so angry. With this guy's cowardly personality, it must have taken him many days to muster up the courage to say that he wanted to know what it was like to be in a relationship with someone that after being so fierce today, he probably wouldn't have the courage to mention it again for a month or two, or even 3 to 5 months. He was already a coward, and now he is even more cowardly after being beaten up by me. Chapter 231. Zhuxiaonian couldn't help but feel angry and annoyed. Why are you such a coward? This is a coward. I knew he was a coward from a young age. After being a coward for so many years, it's become a habit. Today, he mustered up his courage and finally didn't cower, but he got beaten up by me. That there was no point in being angry at this question, so she could only be angry at the person who ruined the opportunity. Who was it? Who was it that came to spoil the fun? Zhou Xiaonian's heart was filled with murderous intent. Zhou Xiaoduo focused on Zhou Xiaonian's face and didn't find any danger, so he was relieved. Then he started to pay attention to the surrounding situation. What kind of people would be coming? The moon was bright and the stars were sparse, so it wasn't a good time for night walkers to appear. Zhou Xiaonian closed her eyes, her sword heart clear, reflecting the surrounding situation. He could feel a strong malicious aura coming from 3 different directions. They were all over the dense forest and were quietly closing in on him. Zhou Xiaoduo also said softly, Sister Nian Nian, there's a murderous aura. They are coming with ill intentions. Yes, I feel it too, Zhou Xiaonian said, but these people's cultivation isn't very high. There's only 1 origin core realm and 2 embryonic breathing realm. I don't know which side they are from. Zhou Xiaonian said this, but she was laughing coldly in her heart. Who are they? Which side are they from? They want to send a few small fries to deal with me. Aren't they looking down on me too much? Suddenly a thought flashed through her mind, and she instructed, Xiao Duo, the opponent's strength is within our control. You can use this opportunity to test the results of your hidden weapon. Zhou Xiaoduo kept silent, maintaining his lying position on the ground. He nodded slightly, not feeling nervous at all, but instead feeling strangely excited. Zhou Xiaoduo was very excited. Ever since he started practicing, except for the one time when he went out for training, he had never really seen blood or a fight. But today this time it was a real fight in the Jianghu. With this thought in mind, Zhou Xiaoduo immediately had a feeling of the boundless world, the boundless world, the vast world, and the martial world. He probably felt that he had become a hero who repaid debts of gratitude and vengeance. He even started to daydream, if I go anywhere in the future, people will have to salute me respectfully when they see me and say, Hero Zhou. So you are the famous Hero Zhou in the Jianghu. I'm sorry for my disrespect. It's better to meet you in person than to hear about you, but to meet you in person. Today, to meet heroes Wuxiong in person, I have no regrets. Scenes like this came one after the other. Zhou Xiaoduo couldn't help but reveal a satisfied smile as he imagined what would happen next. What should I say if it really came to that? How should he answer in a perfect way that would make him seem more approachable and not unreachable? But should I make people feel cold? Awesome, Kalis. The wind whistled. The 3 breaths of the opponents finally got closer. They stopped about 30 meters away from the 2 of them and stopped moving. Zhou Xiaonian instantly located the other party's location and told Zhou Xiaoduo. That kind of aura that contained malice was clearly a malice that wanted to kill the 2 of them. There was no mistake about this. Lingnian, which had almost become a synonym for Zhou Xiaonian, was not just a nickname. 5 more meters and I'll make a move. The one who strikes first gains the upper hand and defeats the enemy in an instant. Zhou Xiaonian frowned, silently calculating the best time, position and means of attack. In the eyes of the 3 people who came in from outside, one of the siblings was lying on the ground with a grass stalk in his mouth, looking very sloppy. The other was sitting, looking up at the night sky, as if admiring the beauty of the starry sky. In addition, the 2 of them occasionally chatted and laughed softly, and the lively atmosphere, they were really no different from young boys and girls who did not know the taste of sorrow. They were completely unaware of the 3 people's arrival. 10 more meters and they could make a move. They would catch them off guard and defeat them as quickly as possible. The 3 of them made up their minds. Who cares about the Phoenix Meridian soul? The most important thing was to protect the family. If the family was gone, what was the point of the big picture? At this moment, one of them revealed a look of astonishment. That was because his phone was vibrating at this moment. Although the phone was on silent mode and vibrated silently, in this quiet night atmosphere, it was no different from a loud bang for cultivators above the level of martial master. The other 2 people who were closer to him were also stunned. Boss, are you kidding me? We're in the middle of a move and you still have your phone. It's fine if you have your phone with you, but you didn't turn it off. What's the use of silent mode? The sound is so loud that it can scare people to death. Not to mention the brightness of the screen. It's a dark night. Do you think the other party is blind? Even if you're leaning against a tree, do you think they can't see you? Are you stupid, or do you think they're stupid? Then they saw their boss take out his phone and pick up the call. The other two thought that they were crazy or that their eyes were damaged and they were hallucinating. How could this be called a fucking secret operation? What the fuck? The other party picked up the call and nodded repeatedly. Then he hung up the phone and made a hand gesture. Retreat. Retreat? The other two people were even more confused when they heard this order. Boss, we've already arrived at the target side. With your call, we've already been exposed. At this moment, your order is to retreat? Then what exactly are we doing here this time? Seeing that the two people did not move, the leader made another hand gesture. This time it was still retreat. However, there was a hint of viciousness in his actions. If the two people hesitated, who knew what would be waiting for them? The two people did not know what was going on, but they could only choose to obey the order and quickly retreat. On the other side, the brother and sister were ready to take action. However, they were surprised to see a call from the other party. They could not help but be speechless for a long time. Zhuo almost laughed out loud. This kind of idiot was too rare to see. They actually received a call when they were carrying out an assassination. And it seemed like it was the kind of call that they had to answer. Zhuo Xiaonian's pretty face was also very interesting. This phone call was really a stroke of genius. Admittedly, it exposed the whereabouts of the intruders, but it also caused a change in the counterattack that we had been preparing to launch. There was really nothing to say about it. After the phone call, the brother and sister tried their best to pretend that they did not see or hear anything. However, they saw that the other party was completely unmoved and even retreated at this moment. Zhuo and Zhuo Xiaonian were completely confused. Fuck, are you guys messing around? What the fuck? You guys are full of evil intentions. The sword is already in hand, and the string is already pulled. The close combat is right in front of you, and then you guys decide not to fight and want to leave. Do you really think that this is a place where you can come and go as you please? Under Zhuo Xiaonian's signal, Zhuo jumped up from the ground like a carp and shouted, "Beep! Stop!" The three people on the other side were immediately confused. We were ordered not to take action, and that was considered to be letting you guys off. Now you guys are actually coming over. Do you want to die? However, on second thought, they could not help but break out in cold sweat. So the other party had already discovered us? If that was the case, they thought that the other party had not discovered them. They thought that they could catch them off guard. If they really took action, they would only be caught off guard by the other party. With this thought, they could not help but express their admiration for the leader who answered the phone call. It was really the leader. At the critical moment, he seemed to be an idiot and answered the phone call, but he actually managed to avoid disaster. Otherwise, he would be the leader. Zhuo Xiaonhua arrogantly strode forward with his head held high and his chest puffed out. The grass under his feet rustled, giving off the feeling of a hero roaming the martial world and looking down on the world. He nodded and said, "You three. I'm talking to you guys. Why are you running? Stop." The three people helplessly stopped in their tracks. This kid just had to jump out and make a scene today. That's asking for death. They can't blame us for this. What's the matter? The leader was also cursing in his heart. The family had arranged for me to kill people, but he strongly requested me to bring my phone to contact him at any time. Now this is such a joke. Do you think I want this? Today is very likely to become my disgrace. My nerves were so tense that they were about to snap, but the family had really called me and asked me to give up and cancel the operation. This was already enough to make me speechless. But before I left, I was stopped by the target. What the fuck is going on? Zhuo stood in front of the three people and looked at them with a frown. He raised one hand and his face was instantly filled with compassion. He said in a deep voice, "It's not that I want to stop the three of you. It's just that the three of you are fated to meet me, immeasurable deity." As soon as this sentence came out, not only the three people of the Ning family in front of him, but also Zhuo Xiaonian, who was following beside him, also widened her eyes. "What do you mean?" Zhuo pretended to recite in a long voice, to break the secrets of heaven and the mortal world, to give guidance to the Yin and Yang sect. The three of you have met in the middle of the night. It's really fate. There's something I have to say. What is it? I see that the three of you don't look good. Evil is coming from the east, black gas is covering your faces, bad luck is hanging over your heads, and white tigers are in the sky. Tonight, it's inevitable that a bloody disaster will befall you. I'm here to remind you to make a good karma. Masters were pretended to be kind and said, the three of you, Buddha has the virtue of caring for all living things. I really can't bear to see the three of you leave just like that. It'll cause a disaster and death to befall you. The four people, including Zhuxiaonian, didn't know what he was talking about. Wasn't immeasurable deity's Taoist name again? How did it become Buddha? Are you a Taoist or a Buddha? A bloody disaster? At that moment the leader sneered, Master Zhua, you're exaggerating, aren't you? Zhua Xiaoduo smiled faintly and clasped his hands behind his back. He looked like a calm master. Immeasurable Buddha, so you know me. The three people were full of murderous intent and ferocious. Obviously, they were here to kill Ning Ke and his sister. The two sides were on opposite sides. How could Zhua Xiaoduo let them go? How many monthly votes would there be at 7?